So the time that I started working out, the hardest was when I was in Chicago and like around grad school and after grad school when I got my first desk job. I never put that together. And I
Yep.
hurt myself because I was riding my bike everywhere to
Yep.
commute. Because I had all this energy. I was young, I was in my 20s, and rock climbing as like a hobby, like after school or work, whatever. I was gonna say church. I was
Basically.
running like sometime like I was working up to a half marathon at one point. I ended up hurting myself. I really don't like running. I feel like it's a chore. Um, yeah, and then I started at when I was working at that insurance company, there was a huge culture of working out together, and I was
Hmm.
doing like weight training, like strength training. Um, Less so the other stuff, but yeah, I would keep hurting myself, probably going from like the sedentary because I spent most of the time sitting, and then because I am athletic, just going full force
Yep.
into whatever the workout was because I've got so much pent up energy. But yeah, you need something more, I guess, ease into it or something calmer like yoga.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, it was so tough to figure out how to balance all of that. I'm thinking back to, well, first, I'm just working from home
Yeah,
like 20 years ago before most people are
anyone
doing
is.
that.
Yep.
And so like having a place to live where there was like open space, we were in the city in Chicago. Um, So I figured out you could live near the lake and there's like running trails and like fields and stuff like this or whatever. And then I found cycling. And so I would ride my bike everywhere to client meetings and stuff like this. I'm all sweaty and like, I don't fucking care. Uh, but yeah, like my understanding of athletics was like a high school understanding of being coached, like I never
Hmm.
did any sort of college stuff or anything that was like more nuanced or and my strength training, like I ended up getting like just a gym membership somewhere and then just lifting as much as I could like just until I finally figured out that there's like some better ways of doing this, but I like got strong enough that it was costing me too much money. Like this is back when I wasn't making a lot of
Oh, to
money. I
eat.
was to eat
Yeah,
like because I was having to take in so many calories from
so
being so
much. Yeah.
strong and I was just eating all the time and I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to work." Like, and at the time I didn't have any concept of yoga. I didn't understand what it was or qigong or any of these like sort of movement like or like sort of strength and motion practices and stuff,
Hmm.
which are I found now and are significant. Like I've been doing this calisthenics stuff, which is just like what they used to teach you in school or the military or whatever, like push-ups and pushing and pulling and this kind of stuff. Sort of comes out of like I think a Stoic tradition and like related to gymnastics and I love it because you don't really need equipment. It's all
Yeah.
body weight. So we
Yeah.
can travel and do it. And so there are a bunch of like courses and stuff online now. And it feels nice because you're like the guys who teach it, they're like monkeys. They're like moving all the time. They're like on Zoom, they're just like moving the camera and like they can't sit still and they're just like, all right, and then you got to do this. And I'm like, I want to be like that guy because I just sit here, you know, like a tree. Uh, but yeah, it's helped a ton. And then the Qigong, that thing it's like it as a base it is so good because it's like the subtle energy movement stuff that like it's working with like I don't know, like when you get pent up it's just keeping that stuff flowing all the
Yep.
time, and like there is a noticeable difference in like stress response and all these other things. And then on top of that, you lay harder workouts. And then like when you get the like crazy feelings of like pushing yourself to limits, you're able to like think a little bit more in there so you can work better. Anyways, that's been my experience.
It sounds so dreamy, and I still haven't got into it. Um,
Takes some time,
uh, I
Yeah.
never understood the purpose of weight training.
Mm.
I mean, depending on your work, right? But
Yeah.
uh, like, what's the purpose of lifting? heavy weights? When is that useful? Because it's not really that amazing for your body.
Yeah.
I prefer body weight training and uh, some sort of speed. So running.
Yeah.
Cardio, something. Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you ever get into cycling?
I did for no, I mean I didn't. I mean at gym, there's still
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then this startup I started looking into where you have this big screen right in front of you and you're
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
cycle with your friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Zwift.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We were doing that in our garage over the COVID. It's pretty fun. It's all right, but it's still a fucking video game. Like, I want to be outside for that. Like, that's the perk of cycling. Like, you can go on adventures and you can go pretty far, like hundreds of
Yeah.
miles if you get in real good shape. So, it's nice. Like, it's a good, yeah, it's a like a good way, the same way people go out for these long runs, and they're sort of pushing themselves into a place where they don't normally get. And so, like, you can, especially when you have mountains or hills around, like you're just working with gravity, and it becomes a very simple thing, like get the next pedal stroke, like, and it's a good way to focus. And then going downhill I loved, because you can get going so fucking fast, and if you are not present you die. So that's a very good, like, blunt mindfulness technique.
He scares me because he goes so fast.
It's fun.
I get
I don't really
worried.
do it
I'm
anymore.
gonna go ride my bike and I'm like, ooh, okay.
Got to burn it off somewhere. I settled down with that so much, because I was like timing everything. Like, it's the holdover from that, like, competitive culture,
Mhm.
um, and like getting
Instead
rid
of
of the
just going out for a ride.
Yeah, the place that I'm trying to move now is like, uh, sort of strength with efficiency, like
Mhm.
only the right effort at the right time, rather than like, because when you're really strong you just want to go fucking burn everything because you're like, ah. And now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, there's a lot of things going on. Like, what is the balance between, like, using that strength when it's appropriate, maintaining it, balance, all of these things. It's more of the martial arts stuff. Uh, you feel more balanced too, and then when you need to move, it's there, right? Like, because you've been training it, and then you push it to an extreme occasionally, and then you pull it back. There's transitions and all these kinds of things. It's just a more nuanced way of being, instead of just going fucking 150% all the time and then falling apart.
Yeah, cycling is
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah, can be.
I find like doing hills is intense. Like there's no like reprieve. I mean, I don't know if it's just that I never got into cycling shape, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm pretty athletic and getting on the bike. I mean, I guess it got to the point where it wasn't horrible, but it's still like the amount of effort. Um, it can be smart effort, but going up a hill on a bike is just like, yeah, you're pushing it because there's no like with running, you can slow down kind of, and you can slow down on a bike, but I don't know, like yeah, there's something there for me that I always was like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's more intense to me than running.
hmm.
It pushes me in a way. It might be that I'm just afraid I'm going to fall off the bike all the time.
It's part of it. She was afraid that, like, when we first started riding together, that, like, she's gonna go uphill, and then as she's going uphill she'd just fall over.
Mhm.
I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
I did it
But
though.
I
Not in the
understand,
beginning,
like,
not in the beginning, but I've done that. Like you
sure,
stop
when
on
you
a
get,
hill and then you
yeah,
start up again because it's with the clips, you like clip in.
yeah,
Um, yeah, start
Uh,
up again, and then I can't get the like next foot in the clip, and you're going too slow, and you just sort of boop.
well, that, yeah. But if you're moving and you're already clipped in, it's unlikely you're gonna fall over unless it's so
Really
steep
steep,
and then you black out.
I guess.
Anyways,
Yeah, I'm just afraid it's gonna get really steep. I'm not gonna be able to do it. I need to unclip. It's all happening, and I'm like slowing down, and it's like like again slow motion,
no.
and I'm gonna fall down a mountain or something.
I always wonder where those kind of mental images come from, because I still have the
Mm,
fear, and then up until I think a few days ago it clicked for me. I'm like, like this happened to me when I was very little. I was
Hmm.
running very fast and there was something in front of me, so I couldn't, like a car, let's say, parked
yeah.
car, and I'm running very fast. I'm probably 7-ish, and a dog comes out of the car, or
Mm,
from behind
Oh,
the car, and then jumps, a wild dog,
yeah.
and I'm just shocked,
yeah.
Yeah.
and it's bigger than me when it stands on
Yeah. Oh,
the,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So the only lucky thing was a neighbor, and then throwing water at him. But
Wow, that
up
is
until
lucky.
today, I still, every day that I run, I have a fear that something is behind the car. So I'm always slowing down or
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? It's it's
Interesting.
many years, and I remember that's because of the when I was little.
That's
Yeah,
funny. I
you
had
would be
a,
surprised.
go
There
ahead.
is there is this kind of little glimpses of memories that haunts you until you
Hmm.
Hmm.
kind of, all right, that's the thing, and I will push myself to not do anything differently when I'm around those kind of environments
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
places or whatever it may be.
Yep.
And hopefully it goes away, but it hasn't gone away from me yet. And I'm
Yeah.
31. Crazy.
It takes time with these things. Like you have to, there's all these different techniques to soften around those too.
Hmm.
Like, there's, because you're training, you're untraining a startle response that's like so embedded,
Yeah.
like your body knows how to protect you. And so this is what a lot of the, like the Kundalini stuff that Kristen's talking about, like, is taking you into fight or flight responses. And I started doing that stuff, and I'm not like, Kristen has such a better relationship with that stuff, because I would do it and I'm like, holy fuck, I just feel like I'm drowning, or like I can't breathe, all of these
Hmm.
things. And slowly, as you do these practices, you are putting yourself in these positions, like, you know ramping them up, feeling what it's like, and then coming back out of them. Like you can work with other things in your life like this. It helps with stress that way, like gives you like techniques to like notice in the body what is reacting, like
Yeah.
where in the body are you tensing up, and then you can like sort of talk to that part of the body and then calm it down. This is what I've been noticing with these things. uh, yeah, but I have a similar thing. Like when I was a kid, I was riding my bike, and this pack of dogs, it was on an army base. They're just like roving around. They're
Oh
like,
God, yeah.
they're friendly probably, but I look like prey on my bike. And so they just start chasing after me, and I'm like 7 or something, and I'm like, holy crap. So like I had never ridden that fast, and that feeling would show up on the bike sometimes, where I'm like, gotta go,
Gotta go.
gotta
Yeah.
get away from it. Yeah. And like I would have to notice this when I'm like trying to ride at a pace or something. I
Gotta
start
just
feeling
chill
that.
out.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like,
Running from the
it feels
dogs.
like, yeah, like you could use it though too. Like I could use it to go faster, but I would wear myself out. So yeah, I had to. That one took a long time to even notice that it was there, like, and what it was. So I didn't put it together with the dog thing until you just mentioned that, though. It's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I mean that pattern is across behavior, like in your life. There are all kinds of things like that. Like you have some bad experience in school, and it fucks up the way that you can learn
Hmm.
because you associate like reading a book with like some insecurity or something like this, and then it just
Yep.
Yeah.
continues. And so I think a lot of like your middle years or earlier, if you can get the pattern of this, are going back through the like catalog of these things and noticing how they are affecting your behavior and how they have formed yourself, and like then sort of renegotiating these behaviors into something that is more like suited to the style of life that you wish to live. But that's an emotional process, and you need people to help, and therapy, and practices, and all these other things, and ideally a community, and things like this, like what we're doing. Yeah, and it's different for everybody, like what's going to work. Like some people need more magical practices and some people need more analytical ones, and yeah. Yeah.
How's the week been?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had a friend in town, which was interesting. Just having someone like in our space, like she stayed with us. I usually get really stressed out when people visit. I don't know why, but like I wasn't as stressed out with her, but I have this like thinking about this morning. Because the bedroom that she was in, like the door's open now and she's not there. And when she is there, or anyone, it's not her, it's not specific to Jesse, but there's just an energetic weight or pull with people, and I don't know what it is. Like I was like thinking about that, like it's probably a childhood thing. I don't know what I'm worried about, or if it's worry. Even it's not worry, it's just this like really heightened awareness of someone close by, and like I'm comfortable with her, but yeah, like I feel like I have to be quieter in the morning. Like like there's all these like things where I like don't want to, I guess in some ways, like I don't want to disrupt her. I'm trying to find like a balance with like doing my own thing though. So yeah, I've always had this like some like when I was really young, like thinking about going to other people's houses for sleepovers, I fucking hated it. It's just like awkward. Like there's something like I'm like just super aware of like I'm like, I don't know. It's the people thing too. There's some insecurity here. I don't know what it is. So I've been thinking about that a lot. Because we had a nice visit. Like she's cool. And then like she spent one of the days that she was here with her other friend, which was nice because it was like a break, and it was like she could come back in, and it was like it wasn't like we had to be together all the time. Yeah, so it's an interesting experience for me. It always is. Or going to visit someone. Like summer camp was the same way. Like I don't know what it like if I'm like not in control completely, I guess, of my environment or something. I don't know what it is.
I have that too. Would be interesting to figure out what it is. So if anybody comes to visit here, I think there is not a pressure, but there is a thing. All right, I'm the host.
Yeah.
And I used to think I'm introvert, but then lately I've kind of realized I've been extrovert. It's just sometimes with the work you become forced into becoming introvert. Otherwise, when I was younger, I always had parties, and then people usually slept over because they do. And I would always be kind of, all right, just can't wait to be alone.
Yeah.
So I can, what do I do? Nothing, just watch. I think at the time was some series or something that I wanted to watch. And then 2-3 hours of just being alone, you're like, oh, that would be cool to meet some people.
Exactly. Like you recharge real quick. Yeah, I think it's a sensitivity to other people's energies, but I don't know what it is about their energies. Like if it's that we don't know how to like have boundaries for ourselves, or what the boundary is, like I don't know. I think for me that's partially it, and it could be because I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So growing up, there's a lot of people around all the time, and then because I'm the oldest, like helping take care of the family sort of thing. And I felt like, and then going into work, and then you never feel like your time is your own, and you're always responsible for other people if you're in leadership positions. But the thing that's weird is like friends aren't like that. They're not like looking for me to like manage them or something, or like tell them what to do, but maybe it feels like that because you're a host. Yeah.
One is I have so many of these things. It's such a cliche book. What is it? Tony Robinson's book. It's like this thick. But ironically, it's like the best book that I've read.
Really?
Yeah. I think when it comes to books and your kind of impression of them, it because of the timing as well. So it was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
perfect timing to read such a book.
Yep.
Nothing crazy in it, but it just all
Yep.
resonated very quickly. One of them is during your childhood, I kind of realized I was getting praise for the wrong things.
Mhm.
And that, you a person who take care of others or
Yep.
things like you start develop whatever you've been praised for, you start further developing that skill because oh, I want more,
Yep.
more of this. So I'm like that. I'm overly same thing like you said. If somebody's sleeping and I have to go to the bathroom
Oh
and
yeah.
it's in the other room, oh
Yep.
God, to
Hmm.
the absolute limit until I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, there's
Because
like a
that
whole
person is
mental
even,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, could be younger. If it's a younger, older thing, it's not even that. It could be a younger
No,
person in
yeah.
the other room. I'm like,
Yep.
because we have that in our culture. You need to be respectful of their space or
Yep.
whatever. So you can't really, and I have that to so weird degrees when I was younger. I didn't have it, then I got it. Now, I worked so much to get rid of it. And I do believe people can change
Oh yeah.
themselves. And if you just reach the level of just being insanely uncomfortable with who you are, um, until the point that I'm not gonna live a life continuing what I'm
Yep.
doing. These
Hmm.
things need to change, and even if those things are core, I always kind of thought, all right, something in my environment needs to change so I can associate myself with that type of a person, and it automatically will happen for me.
Yeah.
So I put myself in those kind of environments, and then that take care of it. Um, but if I go on and I don't meet people for a while, then I'm like, oh, better off to not meet people now.
Oh yeah. You can fall
That's a
into rhythms with
problem.
this, and the
Yeah.
older you get, the easier it is to start like creating a stable pattern
Yeah.
of some kind of you can more easily habituate things. And if you're in a position where you have resources, you're not being pushed by survival necessarily.
Hmm.
So like you can get into retirement mode, I guess, is like and retirement mode can be a healthy recovery type of thing. It's just about definition of like what you're looking for in your life. And like so these kinds of behaviors, like when they arise, having some system of working with these things, like, and like an overall sort of pattern of encountering them. And so like when you're talking about it, I've been doing a similar, like I have a bunch of these things. When Kristen's friend was here, for whatever reason I didn't want to cook. And I think this is it's a
Oh yeah, you've mentioned
and
this before with cooking. Yeah.
it's an insecurity around, like, it's probably a male female thing, a masculine feminine thing. And like there's still some embedded from conditioned years and years and years and decades and lineage that that's women's work or something, right? And I'm not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that women should be doing that work. It's that uh I'm embarrassed at how like simple my abilities are in that area. Gesundheit. uh and I've been noticing this, right? Like, but there was a point where I was hungry, and I'm like, I'll just wait till they leave and eat then, because then I'm
Yeah.
more comfortable to do
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I can put off hunger as long as I need to. I can put off, like you're saying, using the restroom, same thing for hospitality needs. I'm like, fuck it. I'll just sit here and meditate while you, and it, to the point where I'll get grumpy about it. And then I'm just like,
Yeah.
what are you
Yep.
Yeah.
doing? Just go make some food. Like, yeah, I noticed this when I was like writing about it, and I'm like, it's ridiculous. So the like meta thing that I'm working with here is like, like these behaviors are going to arise, and when you
Yep.
spot them, like your methodology is to go put yourself in a situation where you're exposed to the the friction or whatever it is, and by being exposed, that you can figure it out, right? um Mine is like I have to be gentler with that stuff for me, because like I'll blow myself up like by overdoing it with too many of those. So like just sort of having a system that like, you know, these identities are old and conditioned and maybe not useful anymore. And so there's a way to like gracefully let them go. And like, you know, you're in a meta pattern of constantly evolving, especially in the world we're in, because everything is changing so rapidly. You are going to be pushed up against these things all the time. So what is the like the sort of base training that you can do to like engender an adaptable like sort of identity structure so that like you can pick up selves and drop them like with it's there, this is still painful, right? Like but working not against the pain but like sort of with it in like a generous way kind of thing. uh I've noticed that this is helping some because my mindset is, oh, it's another one of these, got another one of these to play with. And like there are elegant ways to handle this, and then there are less elegant ways, and I've done a lot of the less elegant ones. So now like figuring out like a sort of a meta practice around these things has been helpful. So yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that too much.
What is the meta practice though?
I'm hanging it off of the sort of John Vervaeke ecology of practices thing. Like there's basically sets of like base level practice of working with, you have like a contemplative thing, you have a movement practice, you have a mindfulness practice, like you have a dialoguing practice like this, a philosophical practice, and you can get these from wherever, which whatever works for you. Like mine, you know, I like this Neoplatonic model, you know, that like is cross disciplinary. It's you know, I like, you know, the things that translate. You know, I like knowing about how qigong works, and then how something that is adjacent like yoga is solving the same kinds of things, and then the overlaps you can kind of see, you know. So I don't know. And then yeah, so it's some set of those things. I don't,
Yep.
John Vervaeke and those people probably have like a more concrete model of how to put this stuff together.
How you stick them together. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I find it helps to talk about it, like just to get it out in the air. And like even because Jessie and I are close enough, like I can talk to her about it. And we had an interesting experience one of the days that she was here. She's on vacation and she wants to get drunk, and I didn't want to get drunk. And I usually fall into, it's like I'm pressuring myself to match energies. And I was just like, I don't have to do that though. I can still like be like hang out and like have fun, but I don't need to get drunk. And I didn't, and she did, and it was fine. And I was like, holy shit. Like, so that was like a big, I was like, okay. So yeah, it's finding, like for me, I was like, okay, I need to be able to do what makes sense for me in the moment, but still be present with whatever's going on and being comfortable with that. So the thing you were saying, Farzad, about taking care of other people, like I definitely have that because of my upbringing. And yeah, like I'm always putting myself in front of other people, and then I'm disappointed because I'm not doing what's good for me. So part of it's learning how to do that. And
there is whenever you are most frustrated with that, read The Courage to Be Disliked.
Oh yeah, I've heard that book.
It's nice.
Our friend Salman got a lot out of that book.
Yeah. I went because I stopped working for 2, maybe 3 years. And that's all I did. Just spend time with myself, figuring out, kind of renovating myself, my brain, my behaviors. And my biggest thing were just getting approvals of others.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeking as well, as soon as I enter a new group. And I can get that quickly because you've been working on it for so long until you reach the point, why am I doing it? I'm not happy. I do that with relationships too a lot. Like in the beginning, before I was like, all right, I'm gonna be the yeah, I hear myself saying that sounds cute. but I'm gonna be like the best version that I can be in these situations. I'm like, but
Yeah.
where am I in that list? I'm and
Yeah,
I'm
where am I?
yeah.
Yeah. That just
Same
that
thing with
question.
work. Same. I have it. I started kind of looking at it when after the marriage. So we broke up,
Yeah.
divorce, and then I'm like, what just happened?
Hmm.
And I'm like, why am I just thinking constantly about how the other person is doing?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I go, why am I doing this with my team as well? If I personally don't like the type of work, like it's some bullshit work, but it needs to be done,
Sure.
I'm not feeling comfortable sending it to anybody else to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crappy work like
Yep.
social media
Yep. Yep.
content
Yep.
creation for that.
Interesting.
But I'm
Yep.
like, nope, I'm not. I'm gonna do that. Um, I'm taking care of them. I still have it.
You're like
Yeah.
shielding them from what you perceive to be like, oh, this is bullshit work. I'm not going to make them do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and things that I think are yeah. I never make time for my. This is going. This is such a talk for me just drinking. I'm gonna blah 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 the whole time.
It's good.
Yeah,
No, this is good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
These things
had
are very
such a
weird.
go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
sorry. Done.
ahead. That one was really tough for me. It remains somewhat tough, but I think I have a handle on that one a little bit. And the way I came to specifically, like, feeling bad for like assigning work that is like beneath me or some other nonsense, right? And however you look at that type of thing, like, because uh, this came from a mentality around profiting and scarcity, right? So there are certain types of work that are high value.
Hmm.
And so, and margin wise, the amount of effort that you put into them is going to produce a high return. And if you work at this type of thing that we're doing, especially entrepreneurial, you will gravitate towards that work because it can grow things faster, right? Um, and you can, what I did was got it mixed up that made me worth more, right?
Sure.
Like, and it was worth more universally.
It's the same
Okay,
thing as weightlifting. This is interesting.
exactly, right?
Pick up
Here's
the
another
heaviest
mentality
thing.
here.
Yep.
And because that is the highest value thing to do. And what it ends up doing is isolating you and separating you from reality, because the reality of things is value can change,
Hmm.
value can be redefined, value is different in cultures, value is different in environment, right? So, like, your high value thing, if you move it to a separate culture, no one cares that you can make a web page in a culture that doesn't care about web pages. Like, so how do you interact? So, and this was really hard for me to translate for a while because I built my identity on this thing and like
Yep.
being a cool guy for being able to do it or whatever. And so the way I came at this inevitably was there is craft and art in every endeavor, right? And the type of person that I want to collaborate with brings to whatever they're doing a craft in the same way that I do with my thing, right? Like, I care deeply about the mechanism and behavior and operation and flow and all of these things of the things that I take on.
Hmm.
And there are other people for whom their culture and upbringing and conditioning has suited them to a similar outlook. And so the process matters more than the output there. And people are going to be better suited towards an area of play, right? Like social media or some other thing that I care less about. And if you can find people with
Yep.
that stance, then you can do amazing things. And then in that craft, in that, like, if somebody has been working at something for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, like, the amount of understanding that they have, the nuance of understanding, these people they're lovely to be around. They're lovely to watch because you will pick up things about your craft from watching them do their work, right? And so then it's a humbling thing. Like, oh, I'm a novice around these people. I love this feeling because you're like, holy shit, look at all the things that you can do and know. And then it's not about the self and aggrandization about what you have done and what you can do and how much you can lift. It's how much is possible through other people and how much you can learn. And then, this gives you, I can be in that position all the time, right? Because then you're endlessly curious about what people, it can also lead to disappointment when things are shallow. That's another one I'm working with. But, so there are flip sides to this, but that one has helped my perspective a lot, because the world opens up in wonder when you can like play with it this way. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
It seems like it's less the person practicing their craft like on its own. It's more in the collaborative context.
Hmm.
So what came up for me, like when you were talking about this, was like, do what's easy for you, what you enjoy doing, like what you've like honed a craft in an area, and then find other people that complement that and like what you
Yeah.
can do together, sort of. Because if you just get someone that's super good at craft, and they don't really want to play with others,
Sure.
that's something that doesn't seem, I don't know.
Yeah. This meant when I say I've been actually developing this some, I think I've been writing about this a lot, like the idea of craft as approach, as ethos. Um, Craft is inherently collaborative. You
Okay,
can go like
that's
doing that
useful.
alone makes no sense, right? Like who are you learning it from? Like who like
Yeah,
inevitably you are picking up the tools of your craft by using it, interacting,
sure.
and like individual craft is kind of not really interesting to me. Like somebody sitting somewhere and polishing
Yeah.
something
Well,
for decades. I mean, what is the point? Yeah. So
that's what I was kind of
yeah.
visualizing. Like I had a visual, like as you were talking, of like, for some reason, like an isolated artist, like a fine artist for some reason, honing their craft. I think because I think of like, or like a master woodworker or something, but they're alone. I don't know in my mind, like
This is
why.
the individualist like sort of mentality around like starving artists who are this like solo.
Yep.
it's
Yep.
it's a
Yep.
bad
Yep.
like I think that it is an unhealthy model for people. And we're like I think that the we need to deepen that definition of craft. Like what does it mean to be extremely good at something? To like, and I think that part of growing as a crafts person, right? Somebody for whom you are creating as a gift to, and as living as, whatever. There's a certain point where you have to teach this stuff. You have to give it away. And
Yeah.
that's how you can find peers to push your craft further. And then this can be a sort of aspirational quality in like being a creator type person, because there's all this talk about creators out there. Okay, what is the spiritual component of creation? It's not just to make money for the market so that you can pump out quantity so that you can make a living. Like, there is an ethos that you can like, you're cultivating an ability, and you need to do this in community and practice, like, so yeah, I don't know. I'm early in developing this thing, but I like it. I think that because it can apply to any sort of art. Like, musicians can do this, and designers can do this, and engineers can do this. There is craft and there is art in
Yeah.
practice. And it comes back to having an inherent like love for the area in which you're playing, right? And like profit will come from that by nature of doing it in alignment. So doing the craft in alignment and practicing it. So it's
Seems like
chunky,
it's
but yeah.
less like profit and it's more value, which can translate into profit depending on the space that you're operating in.
Yeah, it's a redefinition of value. Like, there is financial value, and then
Yeah.
there is, symbolic value, right? What symbolic value are you like gaining profit in and abundance in, like by the act of
Yep. Yep.
crafting?
Yeah. And I think like the concept of craft and art, that sort of model, it feels like in culture, or at least how I've experienced it, I think it should be reworked somehow, because there's art
Yeah.
and craft in anything. So
Yeah.
people don't look at, like, I grew up thinking that I had friends that were musicians and artists, but I had a hard time getting into that because I don't know why, but I did, and it was not something, like, as a kid, that I don't know if it wasn't offered to me or I wasn't comfortable with it for whatever reason. So I always thought that those people were different, like that they were, oh, they're artists, they're musicians, they're doing something that, like, not everyone can do, which is true in some ways, but, like, I can do it in my own way. It's not,
Yeah.
it might not be playing a musical instrument, it might not be painting, which is not to say that I can't learn how to do those things, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it kind of goes back to what you're drawn to, and then spending time honing the craft, but learning through people that do all of the different things, because there are parallels to someone who's playing the fiddle and someone who's painting and someone who's doing project management, even though they're totally different, but
Caretaking, hospitality, like
all of
all
it.
of these things
Yeah.
have art and craft to them.
I
And
mean,
yeah,
business, entrepreneurship is like
absolutely.
crazy high
Yeah.
craft and art.
Making money like in a
Yeah,
particular
there's an
kind of
art to
way,
that.
right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
sustainable money, clever money, quality money, abundant money that goes to work and comes back in symbol, like these
Hmm.
kinds of things. There's a craft to that. Because think about it in terms of the weightlifting again. Like you can get really strong and make giant piles of money. Who cares? Like, I mean, it's cool sometimes, fine, right? But what do you do with it then? How
Hmm.
do you just keep making piles of money? Are you just strong, right? Or can you do it effectively? Can you put it to work? There is an artistry to this, So yeah, I'm feeling into that across the board. I like this ethos for me because it works, because I've spent so much time. There's also the tendency towards people who create for a living, like creating a bubble and making themselves special. This happens across everything,
Oh
right?
wow.
But like, I'm a designer and I know all this bullshit, and you should listen to me as an expert, and I'm amazing, and you don't know anything about anything. Okay, it just reeks of insecurity, and I've done it, so I know what that does to relationships and the quality of the types of things that you can put into the world. If you have like an open relationship with that, where you can go in with listening, like with security in ability, then you will learn what needs to be done in the world, and you can collaborate in ways that enrich everybody, right? But that requires a centered person, and that's hard to do. You have to work at that. So, and it's, you're coming out of center all the time. Yeah.
All the time. That's why you have the practices,
Hmm.
because it's always
We
going to
were
hit you,
Yeah.
especially when you like least expect it and you're just like, fuck. Like those are the worst, where you're like feeling good and then something takes you out at the knees and you're like, why this? Why is this a problem right now?
Yeah.
And if you react that way, where you're like, why is this happening to me? And I shouldn't be experiencing that, then it just gets
Hmm.
worse. You have to be able to like back off of it.
environment has so much to do with it, with
Yep.
Mhm.
just enabling you to enjoy the craft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over the past week, things been very chaotic, and how it is when you, what is it? Two things I'm starting from scratch at the same time, which is
Yeah.
probably not a really wise thing. Um,
Mhm.
but the other day I was talking with William and Griffith. We are hiring
Mm.
like crazy right now.
Yeah.
Just because now I finally feel like I don't need to do everything. So let's scale. We have the clients coming in. OFC has the opportunity to release some of this stuff that we have
Cool.
just locked in for 1 year, which
Yeah.
is crazy. Then I was thinking that the culture between the two should be different. And we were talking about whether we should continue having cross team calls on
Right.
Fridays just to chat. There is no work topics. And being an agency, it kind of messes you in a way that you become so result driven.
Yeah.
If it doesn't give you the outcome necessary, you won't get that next project.
Yep.
So I don't care if you goof around while making it or not. If the result is not there, we're gonna die. But with OFC startup, it's very necessary to be very fun. People enjoy the work, experiment. There are no errors. Just play with ideas, and good things will happen. So the culture there is completely different. Then the other day we just sent the documents for registering this marketing agency, and I'm like, this is me doing this all over again for the 4th time. I should enjoy now. Like there should be a celebration of just doing that, just sending the paper in, and then the bank account gets created or the website goes live and the publication, or once we have the first magazine in our hand. All of these are great things, but then you keep looking at the, or can't wait to do, and immediately even like can't wait to get the first client signed to this, you know, very crazy idea that we've had. No, it's all fine if you want. And and yeah, as soon as you get that next client, you go,
what's next?
all right, this is not good enough. You always say with agencies is such a cursed business in a way that not that, like the other day, well, I don't care, I'm gonna put this online anyway. Every time a client says we send the price and then they go, this sounds reasonable, and you go, fuck.
You've
Every
mentioned this
time.
before.
And we just had that call today, and we say, here's the approach, here's the time, here's the cost, and I go, this sounds reasonable. Like, fuck again. So not good enough,
because you could be making more money. That's the
because there needs to be a negotiation. If it's not, we are underselling.
There needs to be attention. Yeah.
Yeah, if there needs to be woof. They need to sweat. They need to go, this is bigger than we thought. They need to go, I need to talk to my, you know, partners. They need to be that type of conversation, that type of immediate feedback once we reveal the price for a thing. But then if they go, regardless of, I think Tree Drops has built a reputation with, we haven't got, whoa, this is way too much for a very long time. And we keep increasing the prices. And
you have a reputation now for delivering.
Yeah, like in a very weirdly short amount of time compared to others. But then it takes away the joy out of everything that we do, because when is a celebration of things? And the joy of just doing the craft and being all, because in the beginning of a design, once you did something correct, you got just so happy you couldn't go to bed. So all excited about, I can't wait tomorrow to wake up and, you know, this thing is live now, it's online now. But now it's taken away by a bunch of other things that you've grown up and learned, that these are the things that actually matter, and the other thing doesn't really matter because it doesn't actually help you grow the thing. But I'm trying to drastically create these two completely separate environments just to see which one wins in terms of what will be the output, what will be the energy internally. And I really deeply think that, or believe that, people with stress issues shouldn't run companies. It messes, you know, the whole culture. Because it's so untimely. You could just have a burst for no reason. It has no work related reason whatsoever, but then you are at that state. So whatever the next conversation is gonna go south. So I'm just happy to not mess people up.
I mean, there's a lot in there that, like, this is, and I can only speak from sort of personal experience and like the types of people I've seen having to go through transitions like this, right? Because there's a point where, like, the the incentives and the motivations and the things that got you to a level of success or a level of legitimacy or respect, they are, there is now a new quality that needs to emerge from that skill set. And a lot of the time it's very different than the quality that got you there. It is sometimes even flipped, right? Like you go fast and now you have to learn patience because you're really good at fast, but you're not good at sensing, or you know how to get a lot, you know how to get all the money. Now you have to figure out how to get the right money, like the sensible money, the money that is balanced for the type of thing that you're doing, right? And so, and I'm not, I have no answer for you specifically on this, right? Just a framing change a little bit. So like figuring out internally that like you are trying to accomplish something through a client project because it's an opportunity, right? And that opportunity could be to impress and to make a lot of money, which you know how to do. You've done this lots of times. Or it can be to grow the team in such a way that you are confident in your abilities, right? And part of that is understanding what we're worth and like how that worth affects work and quality and flow and all of these things, and is a higher number better or a lower number better for the type of project that you were trying to push yourself on, right? Because like if you were trying to engender something where you are pushing limits or you are trying to and it depends on what your team is looking to grow on, right? Are you looking to grow on quality, on polish, on execution speed, on collaboration, on style of client, whatever it is, right? There are different measures that you can create. You wrote about this recently, elegantly designed constraints. What are the constraints here? Like if you go in with the mentality that like one of the constraints is you could always get more from the client, you could. There are sales tactics, there are things that you could make your margins 99%. You could you could do whatever you want on that front, right? The craft of that then becomes, once you can do all of this, how do you do it in concert with the other growth metrics that you're trying to hit, right? The other, like, how can we feel good about the project that we just accomplished, right? About the process that we're engaging in, like, and how can we do better the next time across these different things? It's hard though, because you have to experiment across things you have no idea about. And you may not even know that those things exist. You probably don't know that they exist. This is the frustration. And one of the what I'm hearing and what you're doing is you're setting up different cultures so that you can get a view of what they do better, right? And then in the overlaps of those things, it's like what I was talking about with Qigong and yoga. They're both doing similar things with different methods, right? Some are, it's process-based versus results-based. And there's a harmony somewhere in there, like, that gives you a style that works for certain types of things. And that's experimentation. There is no winning in these. There's just, more, or this is my mentality on it, there are more or less elegant solutions for the things that you have in front of you. It's a balancing act, right? But a big part of this balancing act is knowing when not to do anything. Just sitting, letting the thing show you what it wants to become. It's terrible, especially if you've been doing agency shit and you're just like fucking over here and over here and you're making moves all the time. One of the moves is just like, okay, here we are. Let's see.
Oh man, I cannot wait for that moment. I haven't got there. You know how you always say with this next thing, with this next gig, with this next whatever amount.
It'll never be enough.
It'll
never be enough. You have to.
It's never.
Yeah.
But
sorry, I'm yelling at you about nothing. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I'm thinking what it is. Like, it's whatever that got you started was a hunger. That shouldn't even been there from the beginning. It's just you've grown up in a way, or some certain constraint where put upon you, and then you
Sure.
go, I can break away from this, and then you go do crazy amount of work to just pull off starting a new company. But once in
Yep.
that's that thing is going, you're like, all right, I'm hungry again, I need to
Yep.
do something new now. And then that hunger never goes away, so you keep taking on shit you don't actually need
Yeah.
for just I need to feed this thing, and it's otherwise I'm not happy.
Yeah.
That's that's how you directly you need to be keep getting confirmations that I can do this, I'm good, I'm doing the right things with my life, things like that.
Yep.
But
It's the same
whatever.
thing as it's the same thing as the dog behind the car though. Like
Yeah.
you're trying to decondition it, right? And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
a growth thing. Like you've outgrown
Yep.
something, but you can't get the pattern out of your head where you're like,
Yes.
Yep.
well, it's the same thing as having like a friend come stay over and looking at it and being like, I'm not actually upset or nervous or like uncomfortable, but it's like it's old software. It's that sort of feel, like old software, new machine, and you're like, what's going on? It's like, and you got to get like, yeah, I guess you deinstall the old software or like put it to sleep, like archive it, like put it somewhere where it doesn't have to run anymore. But in order to do that, you have to write the new code, which
Yes.
you have to do something different than to encode it. It gets really hard. But yeah, and you're still always going to be afraid that the dog's behind the car until you're not, right? But then you have to habituate whatever is after that. And it looks like Dave was saying, like, I forget where you came up with this, like, it's going to look different than whatever you're doing now. And that's the hardest thing. This is where there's like a leap of faith when you sort of transcend, when you grow, because you have no idea what's going to be like, what's the next thing. But once you get used to it,
you can't even imagine the next thing.
No.
If you could imagine it, you'd be doing it. So it is so different from what you know, but then it's obvious in retrospect after you've done it. Yeah.
Well, I think too, with agency work, I would guess that there's lots of little instances of this where you're not sure, and then you figure it out, you do something different, and you're like, okay, that worked. So those are like just little mini like growth things, transformations. So it's like finding like that feeling where you're like, I'm going to make the leap, and then sort of translating that into whatever this like bigger leap is. I don't know. That's another way of like thinking about it. But that stuff, it doesn't really translate because you're like, yeah, but this feels different because it feels bigger, because it is bigger, but it's made up of all the little things. So it's again, it's like, maybe not again, but I think about this all the time. Often we already know what to do. We just have to do it. It's not like any of the process is probably the same as a million other things, but the environment or the content feels different. So we get distracted until we make the leap. And then we're like, oh, that's just the same as all the other ones.
Yeah. I wonder how long you're gonna let, or me, let the shortcomings control your life.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is. I can chill now. I have 3 jobs on OFC on roll. And I can take a few years off without worrying that, all right, I'm on a limited timeline right now, because that was the last time. This time, things are running smoothly. I'm not needed. And I can just be okay with once a week, once a month catch-ups. Just so I feel involved a little bit as I, transition a little bit more out. But I'm like, all right, rising enterprise, just because I know there is a very good opportunity to do it. So I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. And then with the marketing, I'm like, all right, this is so no-brainer, because it wouldn't be as difficult as other things, just because of the nature of marketing, and companies have a budget for it. It's not going to be too much of a fight. So all right, whatever, we can do that. And with rising, I've never actually raised money in my life. Let me just create something new and then raise money under that I can actually do something good with the money. I don't think startups, most of them need money, but building solution for enterprises, you need. So I'm like, all right, that's going to be a fun journey. What will be even more fun if I do both of them at the same time. Let's just see how that goes. I can shorten life. That's what I'm doing all the time. I'm just trying to do things
Shortcut.
much fast, shortcuts, yeah, by just overworking. And
Yeah.
you kind of always, they always catch up with you,
Well, you
which
know
is
that
where
at
I'm at
least.
currently.
Short term
Um,
gains over long-term wins, or whatever you want to say. Yeah, this is something, I forget where this came up recently in my life. Oh, waking up in the morning. I don't want to get up. And I'm like, so you're going to lay in bed for how long? 15, 20, 30 minutes because I like it and it feels nice, but if I just get out of bed and start my day, I feel better for a longer period of time because I have more time to do the practices I do in the morning. I've got a lot of little things, and it's such a hard thing for me to learn. Like, just fucking get up. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's nice. I mean, it's a
I,
small little thing compared to what you're talking about, but it's a similar mindset. Or like for Dave, I mean, we learned this the hard way with Ponder. It was go back into the thing, do something right away, like try to find a business
Yep.
when we weren't ready to do that. So then now
Nope.
we're like, okay, we can't go for the short-term win in this context because what we want to do is bigger. So we need to chill. It's really hard. It's really hard. And the money stuff is creeping in again where we're like,
yeah.
but in a different way. Like we want to play with money and like business
Yeah.
and making money in a way that's not just so we can do it, but in a way that is
Making
specific.
money well.
But we don't know.
Making
I don't know
money
what that
well.
means yet. So
I have a I have a better idea. Like, I know what making money fast is like. I know what making money like ridiculous is like. But
what's
when
ridiculous?
you hmm,
What is making money ridiculous?
I mean, you can cobble together a big like orchestrated fantastic thing and get people hyped and they're like, "Oh, this is cool." And then you're like razzle dazzling them and then the money will start pouring in because people want to be part of the hype and then like maybe you can pull it off or maybe not. It's fucking ridiculous. And like you're a clown. And that's fine. That's a style of money making and some it can be fun sometimes, but it's ridiculous. Like, or you can slowly like study and find people who care and who have like long term figured out like paths of craft, and like you can work together in collaborative environments that are difficult and form relationships that may or may not work out or whatever. You can be vulnerable in this process, and in the vulnerability, in the slowing down, in letting things emerge, like what you get is a solidity to that, right? And in the practice of like playing with each other, right, across like skill sets that the world needs,
Mm-hmm.
then what will emerge is places where you can be of service, right, in something that is aligned with something that you care about.
Sure.
And if you can do this where every day you show up and you have to mediate your energies, because you're so excited about the potential of the thing, right? And you learn to offer energy where necessary and then pull back where unnecessary. Like if you can do this, you can go for a long time. And this is where compounding kicks in. And if you want to make real money, you want to make big money, whatever that looks like, smart money, it compounds. And then that compounding, then it becomes a practice of, in thinking about this, figuring out how to redistribute this money in such a way that other people can do this. It is coming from a place of generosity, from abundance, right? And if you can then be offering, we're all wired this way, that we want to give, right?
Right.
Especially the three of us, because we have this like you're constantly worried about people around you all the time, right? So like help create an environment for them so that they can flourish, right? And then that money is being put to use where it moves outwards and can be a foundation for other people. Like, because otherwise you're going to hoard it, right? Or you're going to put it to use on making new, like, for me, like some new razzle dazzle thing or something. So there is a there is a health to that system. There's an ecology. The money is just one fluid in the overall structure of this thing. It's just one fuel, right? And it's a potent fuel. It's a high powered fuel, but it's just, you know, like anything else. So the design of that thing it's growing, right? It is growing in the agricultural sense, in the natural sense, in the not manufactured growth, but organic growth, right? So like you are planting seeds and you are watering them. You cannot make it go faster. It goes as fast as it goes. And if the environment is appropriate to the growth, then it will grow healthy. It will grow strong, right? This kind of thing. So
I've
where
got
do
a
you
challenge for you.
Yeah, where do you start is my question, but go ahead.
It's already started.
Well,
you just have
we
to
could
see
talk
it.
about that, but I want to, Farzad's got
I'm thinking challenge for me, and I think for Dave, because I think we have the same management leadership style. If he doesn't lead, somebody else leads, and then you need to actually, it's not a comfortable place.
Oh, I love it.
Because
I've
never been in that. I've never been in that position.
Yeah. No, you're right though.
Yeah. I can be
this
equal.
was hard for Dave with Carbon Made. Because, well, with Dave with Carbon Made, I think the challenge was that you had a business partner. And then the two of you had to figure out how to seed control to like a bunch of different people. So you have to, and the nuance there, I think there is potentially different perspectives on behalf of the two partners for what you wanted to get out of the thing. And then if those are clashing, it's not going to work because you have to agree on how to seed control and like what that looks like. I don't know if that's an accurate depiction, but it was hard.
I mean, that's part of it. So the leadership thing that Farzad is talking about, what pops up here is going back to that craft thing that we were talking about. If you are working with people in a peer environment and those people have the I don't know what it is, like the love of what they're doing and the space to do it well, right? They're not stressed and frazzled. They're taking care of themselves. They're in an environment that is healthy. Leadership shows up in expertise and wisdom, rather, right? In wisdom primarily. Like, and there is a wisdom in letting other people lead where they're stronger. Like there is a wisdom in the humility of following, right? In being led. Like, and it's hard though, once you've become a strong leader, like you know how to exert power in certain ways, you know how to move resource and, you know, inspire and all of these things, right? Then it's learning the craft of having that come back to you. Like, how can you listen to somebody who is also a leader in their own right, in their own area, right? And be led. Like Kristen has taught me a lot about this.
There's an interesting thing like that comes back to we were talking about not wanting to give people the like the dirty work or the like mundane tasks, whatever you want to call it, bullshit jobs. I've had that experience. The most like salient memory of this, I worked at an insurance company. It's basically pretty much all operations. Like we're connecting a lot of things, and we do care coordination, provider coordination. It's all kinds of coordinating information flow and people. It's crazy, and it's fun though. Like I like this kind of stuff. So
let me for a second, let me explain what that means. Like it is the art of relationshiping, the art of like communication and right, like the connection. So and
what it like is so what I was gonna say is in that environment as a leader, you're talking to a lot of different people who have a lot of different skills that they are really good at, right? So like I worked with a lot of care coordinators, for example, and then I had to work with like executives and I had to work with the IT team. Like everyone's got their little pieces. And I think the leadership piece comes in where you can see something about how these things connect, like creating channels and conduits for communication or information, data. It's flow of, yeah, I guess communications, generally speaking, that other people can't see because you're uniquely situated wherever you are. So it's helping to build that like scaffolding, whatever it might be, and you're working with people to do that and letting the people then like have some ownership over that, but then let them do what they're good at and like be transparent about how you're building the scaffolding. This is what I'm doing. I need your help to do XYZ. And so people can kind of see it. Again, it's like the transformation thing. If you have it in mind, but they don't have it yet, you sort of invite them in, come along for the ride, watch me build it. We're doing it together.
Yeah.
And now that it's built, like this is like, we did this together. You can shine now. You could do your care coordination thing, but I'm still available for when something falls apart to advise, whatever it might be, because you're doing your expertise. And it usually is something like, this is the craft thing. Like if you're really focused on something, which you tend to need to be when you're getting into like something vulnerable, you can't see the big thing. So leaders tend to like be able to hold the big picture because they're not doing the little focused work. It's all important. You need both. So there's something in there, I think.
That's
like at least
that's the difficult part, because with both of us, and I don't know about you, Kristen, but as soon as a thing comes up, we've already have a very clear mental picture about it.
Yeah.
So then it's just directing, same thing that we do with agencies, because both of us ran an agency before, and then our mind are kind of shaped in that way, which kind of messes up with all the startup thing that we do, because we don't sometimes even let the customers to come into that picture. Like, this is exactly the type of company I want to build, and this product should be like this. I've never been in a place where I don't have it. I don't have the picture. The other person has it. And I try to kind of, even if I see the picture, that's his picture. That's not my picture. So I can't commit
shared picture,
as much as he does, because we are not aligned. It's kind of impossible to get 100% aligned on things.
Oh yeah.
Especially the big things. Approach, you want to be aligned. Not aligned, you kind of want to dictate this is how it's going to go. And then I kind of want everybody to go along with this, because just trust me, I've done this before. Things like that. It's very difficult to be the other person now and go, all right, he knows what he's doing. And he has the experience and he's done it before. You let him ride. And then after a while you go, no, actually, I've got some inputs. And then you very quickly can turn on that part of your brain, and you go, I can actually influence everybody in this group to agree with what I want to build, and then move them towards that direction instead. And that always what happens whenever I start a new thing with somebody.
So I have something for this, and Kristen has taught me a lot about this. Like, her leadership style is a lot more elegant and invisible.
Nice.
And part of it is, like, if you have a group of people together and they have coalesced based on you've hired them, or they've come to you like based on a sensitivity to what you're trying to accomplish, those people have the keys to doing the thing well. And I have this problem all the time, like power, weakness, one of these things. I can see where we could be. I can see with the potential that is embedded, many potentials, right? And I can run through them and do probability analysis like instantly, But these people can't see that yet. They are that, they can feel it, and it's also a fantasy. This thing is a fantasy. It doesn't exist. So the leadership quality here is slowing down, like moving into the probability space, slowly, silently, write it out, figure it out, and then start playing in this environment and seeing if they come up with the same conclusion, or if they're headed in the same direction. And if something is really off track and it doesn't seem to fit, listen to it for a little bit, but then like nudge if necessary. Like, I think maybe back in this direction, and then ask, listen, right? And then the people will fill in the gaps, and to a level of degree that you could never have imagined, because your imagination is not up to the task of a group of people, right? Because that mental power is significantly stronger than your individual mind. And so what you'll start to see is they'll be filling in gaps, and then what you do is you take that and you're like, all right, I've got all this information, and you can encapsulate it, you can move it, you can direct it, you can channel it, but slowly at the pace that your people can move. And all of a sudden they'll start popping off. Like, I've got this one. And then they'll share it with the other people, and then they've got it, and they start moving, and then you're just trying to keep up, right? Until you have the next one where you kind of have a vision, and then it's okay here, and then you start talking about the vision in like sort of in terminology that will help them potentially see it, and then help you understand how right or wrong you are, right? How far off the mark. So it's being back, it's being relational, it's being like conduit. It's yeah.
You're still leading it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
That's
because
the thing,
people,
you cannot be led. Well, you're still doing it.
You're leading together.
Right away.
You're ceding some control though to the group.
Yes.
You're not coming in. So you have to, there's power here. Like, especially like you two have a lot of power, like a lot.
Yeah.
You can walk into a room and be like, here's how it's going to go down. And people like I've watched, I mean, I haven't seen you do this, Farzad, but I can imagine it. I mean, you have newsletters that reach how many people, like this kind of thing, where people are like showing up because they want to hear what you have to say. I've seen Dave do this. People just stop what they're doing and they're listening to him. And I'm just like, well, isn't that interesting? Like, it's just like, it's commanding. If you do that though, it's learning when to wield that power.
Yep.
People will do exactly that. They will just, what do you need from me? Like, I will sit and I will listen.
They'll be
whatever
mindless
you
in
say.
it. Yeah.
Which
and
is,
I don't want that. It's not fun for anybody.
It's a short-term gain. It's not long-term, because, so I'm thinking, like, going back to the insurance company or any hierarchical organization, what happens often is that the leadership gets really far ahead. They plan it all out, and then they pass it down, and it trickles down.
And the people have no fucking idea what they're talking about or how to get there.
Orders. Like, you're just like, you have to do this, and it's not fun to work like that because you don't have any autonomy, right? You're just like sort of a cog in a machine. But if you give people some room to take some leadership, I think your thing that you're talking about, Farzad, is you're trying to transition leadership. That's a totally different thing while still being involved in some way.
Well, this is outside of these things. By the way, a side note, kind of observation thing. I think the more, just seeing Dave talk, I think the more, like, when people think, I think in pictures. So whenever somebody is explaining things to me, I'm building an image.
Yeah.
Other people are not. So the more you are like that, the more you use your hands when you're talking, because
you have to grab it over here, you have to move it over here. It's this and it's over there. Yeah. I'm
in the middle of you two. So Kristen, you're not moving much. Dave, you move a lot. And I'm in the middle. It's just like you have a perfect image, and then you are painting it with your hands, and then we can picture it. Which is very interesting. Just like, that's what I'm gonna use from now on. If anybody uses their hands while they're talking, they have pictures. There are visual minds. Then I'm so interested to see. My next question to them gonna be: you design, like, you do pictures, you draw. Where does that come from? But the thing is, because I was curious from the last call when we started doing the talking about this thing, and then we opened Figma and moved some things around. I'm like, interesting. There is a thing between me and Dave where when we are talking about the product, there are firmed pictures. So we need to kind of print them out and then go, here's what I see. What do you see? I see exactly this. let's look at it. And then we're going to find the patterns and then match them. But it's an individual thing.
Sure.
Right? We cannot have pins, meaning like I need to see exactly what's in Dave's mind, and then I drop mine.
Just sort of level set. Yep.
Then we're like, all right, now we are aligned.
Yep.
Because it's not the same thing. No.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
then the other thing, yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, I'm trying to find the right format and like method for explanation on this stuff. Yeah, like I'll wait till you're back because it's hard for me to talk to an
If
empty
he's not
screen.
there.
Yeah.
I'm right behind it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is CJ and I are playing a lot with this, and then Kristen, like, you know, CJ's coming over later. We're gonna do a little more of this, and you know, it's there's whiteboarding techniques and this kind of thing, but it's also like get, you know, this is this brings up the sort of Web3 mentality, because there is a different way to move through that type of information, right? And your drawing and laying out in Figma can help or whatever. I'm playing with like new methods of trying to explain my mental landscape, because my mental landscape is nuts. It's it's like, you know, it's probably like it's this hyper-dimensional thing where I've got like memory palaces and, you know, weird objects floating around that are like, so the main thing that I'm here, this actually is good. There is a style, yeah, there is a style of building that we are moving into that is based on like, so the style before is working with objects. Here's an object that represents a symbol, it represents something, right?
Sure.
And you can interact with that representation and something
Sure.
happens, right? And then these representations flow from each other. It's fine, right? There is a thing, there is a style that I am sensing into that is related to the Web3 stuff, and I'm having to read like philosophical texts like to help me understand what this is. And it is this mentality that these things are process objects.
Yep.
They are only explainable in their motion.
Yep.
Like, this is why I'm doing this a lot, right? They're only understandable through how they process, which is really hard to capture how that thing is with a snapshot, because it's in motion, and its motion produces result and relationship. So the layer of interaction is between things. So capturing the things themselves is only a snapshot of state rather than the interaction between state. And this is the layer in which we're working now. Like, this is the closest I've come to an explanation of how this stuff needs to be visualized, because it's all moving, right? And so like going into Figma and like sort of playing together, we can kind of probably figure out the movement stuff, but I don't know what the visual language is for this yet. I've been sketching, and it's collaborative. You have to do it together so that you can see, like, this is why all these collaborative things are popping up. Like, it's necessary to be in the same stratum, like with different media types, to be able to show what you're talking about. Yeah, they're process objects, like, and process objects have motion and activity inherent in their being, right? So there is a style of thing that we don't have tooling for yet. We don't have mechanism
or it's just
for,
like a really
display.
heavy lift for Figma, because you're going to have to be showing all of these interactions, because then this moves to that and then this moves to
It's
that,
like
and you're just
so
like,
much.
and
Like,
you got to sit there while someone's like connecting the prototype flow, and you're like, okay.
so there has to be a simpler design language for this. And I
Yeah.
think that you and I can play with that. Like,
Yeah.
how can we best express what we're trying to express rather than our visions? Because our visions, like you're saying, the alignment of those things, they're going to drift. How can we create primitive styles of communication of type, like, to express these visions that we have? There is a layer here of design style, design tooling, right, that needs to be enacted. This is where I'm most interested. having projects to play with is good. We need so yeah, because I don't, the final vision of this thing is going to be like, you can make with the technology stack that's coming, it is going to be really easy to spin up like these applications. They're simple. Like you can make billions of them. So it's about figuring out tooling that helps individuals and groups of individuals, like interdependent groups, express the thing that they're trying to, right? So this is a tooling layer. Anyways, yeah. I don't know if that made any sense.
Makes sense. It's like dancing.
Yes.
So there's like a difference between like walking to a place and like dancing to get there. Because
Yes.
walking, you're just getting there. Okay, that's cool. And then like there's someone comes in and is like, yeah, but what if you do it like this? And you're just like, whoa, it's like captivating. You want to join kind of thing. That's the visual that popped into my mind. I mean, music is like this. It's the flow stuff. You're getting into water moves this way. Maybe that's why I'm taking showers all the time lately.
It's video versus snapshots. Like,
no, that, I mean, what you just talked about makes a lot of sense, but I'm curious what Farzad's take on it, because I'm like trying to imagine, I'm like, okay, what do you do? Because it's not mocking things up, because then it's an object, but yeah, what is it then?
I mean, I haven't figured this part out, as in a problem that I have personally with these kind of things being, I see something, I'm very suddenly getting all obsessed about a topic, and then I want to create something in that, along those lines. And then the more I think about it, the more attached I become to it. And then it's such a rabbit hole. And the more, so I need to get it out. If I don't get it out, it will eat me. And then I will become, I will put so much of my confidence into that idea that I've been thinking about for the past few months.
This is very much your personality.
Because then you go, this is gonna win. I just need to figure out the ingredients. Once people,
what is it about? So I've watched you do this a couple times. I've noticed like information that we've shared with you or something like that, where you're like, I love this. It's the same thing you're talking about, and you're like,
because you can feel the potential of it. Yeah.
So I want to understand more, because there's like a ton of information packed into this thing, and I want to like stretch it out and be okay, let's look at what happens when Farzad does this, like slow it down. And we like, it's interesting because there is like a process discussion that we could potentially go through when you get one of these, and what is it that you want to do now, why, and then play it out, just go step by step to the point where you're like, oh, I don't want to build it. Like, where you back off of it because you don't have the attachment. Because why is there an attachment? What is the attachment? What are you getting out of that? What is that feeding in you?
I can tell you my biggest fear in life. That is when I get that moment, I'm like, this is it. I get that a few times. And because of just running an agency, you get pitches all left and right all the time. So you rarely get them. As soon as somebody starts talking about an idea, 10 seconds into it, you drift out. But whenever you're like, within the first couple of seconds, like, this is great. Like, I read that brief. I don't care what the pitch is. I just want to work with the person who wrote it on anything, because I like the clarity and thoughts in that brief. But my biggest fear in life, and I still won't know, I think I'm 3 years away from finding out, is that I might be completely wrong. So the things that suddenly clicks for me, and I'm like, this is it, and I'm doing it, and I put everything I have on it, but then who knows if it's gonna work out. Now I have now I have the opportunity to see, because OFC is all that. There is no ground to it. I'm just doing things, and I'm like, this feels right. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put in $500,000 into this. who knows, if
Yeah.
this thing gonna work out, but I'm doing it with my personal money, which is not wise.
Yeah.
But
Fine. What else are you gonna do with it?
that's what I'm worried about. So whenever that happens, I need to go and I need to sketch it out to see if there is anything in there. That's why I always jump into layouts. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not a visual person like Dave. Dave, you're very, like, just looking at your illustrations, you have
Yeah.
a completely different type of
Experience.
visual mind.
Yep.
It doesn't have any ground. You can merge so many different, because that's where you can see these things.
Yeah.
Mine is very reasonable. I've been raised in a sense that you
I'm
do
similar.
what's reasonable, so
Yep.
I'm very grounded in my designs. I'm very architect kind of type
Yep.
of a designer,
Yep.
versus you are.
More whimsical, almost.
Dave is a trendsetter. I'm the remixer, or I'm the architect, and he's a trendsetter.
Sure.
For all
Um,
these things.
we are
Everybody
this.
can be all these things,
Yeah,
Like
but
it's just, we
I,
have tendencies. Yeah.
well, certain
yeah,
people, there's craft, right? Like
Yeah.
clearly Farzad is like extraordinarily good at orchestrating these like big scale, like
Yep.
the design work, the agency work. Like you're just printing this stuff out over and
Yep.
over, like, and executing on it, and they're different applications, right? So what you're talking about, you're like, I mean, who's better? I don't know. Like who else?
It's
I
not
mean,
about
there's
better. It's,
probably,
yeah.
well, it's a real, it's a the craft is there. And then for
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave, same thing, but it's a different like type of design.
yeah. Like, we are completely upside and down in terms of approach.
It's
Like,
good though.
I reached out. Yeah, I reached out to Dave. I'm like, man, Carbon made that was an inspiration for me to even get started in these things. I looked at it every time. Every time I kind of lost hope. One day I'm gonna have a design that has a feeling. I still haven't done it. I kind of came to to kind of acceptance of the fact that I'm not a designer that creates feelings. So I would be the last person to create communities, but I can create navigation systems. I can connect things and how. So so when
This is
he
where
talks
the
about, all right, here's the idea, and then we need to let the time, which kind of marinate it, and then let it sit. I can't. I either let that idea go, or I just start doing something now just so I can see, should I
Yeah.
spend more time on this or not?
this is the peer thing comes into play here. Because like let's say we're going to build something, you have to trust that something will
Mm-hmm.
come out of this, and that your worst fear might come to light, that we did it wrong, but the
It's fine.
way, yeah, but it's, we will have learned something in the
Yeah.
process, and then we are closer because of it, so that whatever is next. But and then everyone has an aspect of this. Like Dave's worst
Yeah.
fear is that it's going to be too like rigid, right? Like it's going to be too I don't know, like architected, and I don't,
Me.
not that that's what, not
Yes.
that, but an
No.
aspect like that. But there, everyone has a fear that they're going into it, and then you can sort of comfort him, like it's okay, don't worry about that one, like I can hold the pain of that one, like because that's easy
This
for me
is
to hold.
so speaking directly to like to the thing we're talking about in our design differences, right? Like one of the problems that or the fears that I have is when when I begin to play in this big arena
Hmm.
where there are things that I can sense connections in, like across newer technologies that are unproven. Nobody's done any of this stuff yet, right? Um, but I have a sense that it's possible, it's potential, right? And then there is a an ethos in which I want to build these things because I believe it is a natural. It will produce a better version of the thing, a more healthier version, right? And my fear is then that it can't connect up like the thing that you can do where you can flow it together, and I have some ability at this, right? Obviously, but I'm not a master at it by any means. Especially when it gets really complex. And the stuff that we're dealing with now has all of these different components that need to tie together through time and space and all this other shit, right? And like, I can only see how it feels. Like, I can feel what it's like when it works and what it's, you know, like when the component tree sits together, but visualizing it, I need somebody to help, like, you know, print this stuff out into the world. Like, and so I have to trust that other people can take, I'm explaining the thing to the degree that I can through whatever means, and then it's out of my hands, right?
Yeah,
like
interesting.
it
You
can
guys are like
then it
opposites.
becomes, it's a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So the conversational style and how we meet each other and trust that in the progress, like, but I know that speed is part of the thing. You cannot rush these things. If you rush them, they blow up. And if it is worth anything, then it can take time to grow. Because if like striking while the iron is hot is true sometimes, but these big new things, I don't know.
Now I'm
It's a
super
combination.
curious to know how Carbon Mate came to life. Was it this? Because like before I'm like talked about the fear that I have, I wanted to say I've been itching to just go partner with an engineer and then just do bunch of silly experiments and then actually ship them.
Yeah.
And then I go, whatever, 50-50. I'm not going to hire you. And then the urge is hire, take control. But I have I built this iOS app with this guy in Sweden, and I'm like, wow, what a good what a smooth communication we have. Things kind of flow, and I just missed that. I missed that the early 3 stage when it was me and Eric, and then we would just goof around, and it was so good solutions out. But then it's in my DNA in terms of how I approach things. I'm very experimental. I'm not a talker in sense of if I start talking about an idea, I need to have something to play with so I can understand it, look at it, move it around, see how it feels. Yeah, like with this thing that if this thing gonna take a while of talking about it,
no, it's a style of conversation. So we're saying the same thing. Conversation is not just words. Conversation is like getting the object out and fiddling with it, like making one to talk about the thing, right? Whatever this is. So like let's make this is what Kristen and I and CJ and John are doing. Like, we come up with a game to play together, and then it enacts one of the pieces of this giant thing, right? And so we go and we play with it, but it's flow, it's process, right? So this is a style of enacted conversation. Like, it's doing as like, it's a different it's a multimedia conversation is the way to think about it. What we're doing here is also part of the conversation. There will be artifacts that come from this video that we can share to put out so that people can be part of the conversation without having to be in the room with us, right? So like, it's not just talking about what is possible. It is enacting this thing through, because we're in an object that is larger than any of us can hold individually, right? And all you can do is sense your way through it through the act of craft. You have to build things. I agree with you completely on this. But there is an approach to building things that is sensible for something like this. So, yeah.
For that true collaboration to come to life, you need everybody in the same state of life, not mind, financially and time. Then you have true kind of collaboration, because what I'm sensing is you guys are still leading it. It's not an equal, not equal.
Yeah. You've got to come for,
Yeah, we run into some interesting things. Like, sometimes, but we've found a way to make it work. So like John is working right now for a startup, so his time is a little bit tied up. Like that's one of the biggest frictions I would say that we have, but we sort
Yep.
of aside from that, like money is not an issue for anyone, so we are level like that. Like CJ's
Yep.
not working right now. He saved up, he bankrolled money. He's an engineer, so he was like able to do that.
Yep.
And he has a very similar mindset that we do, where he's like, I just want to keep doing this. Like I want to play
Yep.
this game, like grow it and make money somehow doing it. I don't want a job. Like, and we're like the same boat, like having the lifestyle sort of match. John wants this too. His approach is different. I don't know if he just doesn't want to, like, he wants to play the game. I don't know what he's looking for in work stuff. We haven't really talked with him about this. But yeah, I don't, we do sort of, we pass the baton for leadership.
All the time. That's
Dave
part
and I
of
are
what makes
older,
it
though.
work. Yeah.
Dave and
Yeah.
I are older, so there is, this comes up sometimes when you have more experience, like we've got more to weigh in, but then John and CJ have more experience than we do in certain aspects of the work because they're younger and their exposure to some of like the newer softwares or the new ways of
Yep.
building, or just their energy. Like CJ's like, I'll just go do this, and this, and we have to like sort of, you know, don't jump to build something, but how would you build it, and talking about it that way.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not really, it's not, it feels more like peers. And then so there are times like I think we've talked about this, where certain people will take the lead because it makes more sense, and then we trust
Yep.
that that person has, like, can carry it.
Everybody has natural leadership ability, and
Sure.
it'll pop up in the place that it makes the most sense. People will just be like John every once in a while is just like, yeah, we should just do this.
Do
And
it
I'm
like
yeah, that's a
this.
good idea.
It's crazy.
I don't have,
And like,
yeah,
we'll be asynchronous, and he can like, he can follow along. This is one of the things about John that's really cool. He can follow along without, like, CJ, Dave and I are like hanging out in person, and then
yeah.
we'll like share, okay, we've been working on this, or like, here's what we're thinking. We're not sure what to do about this, and John's like, just do it like that, and you're like, oh, and then we're like, okay, let's just do it like that. He's not even in the room, and he can like feel into, he can
Because he's
track.
taking in the information through the repository, through the things that we're posting, and then he's able to stick it together based on what he's doing. He's staying in the conversation.
Yep.
So the skill here is learning how to communicate this stuff through time and through different media, so that
Yep.
everybody can stay in the conversation to the degree that they have the ability to do so, right? It's not about everybody being in the same place with the exact same amount of time and the same resources, because it's impossible. It would never work. We tried kind of with this. So it's more about like creating a field of trust between us, which takes time. It takes a lot of conversation. It takes playing games together. You know, it
Yeah, I
takes
was gonna
playing together. Play style is important.
One of the ways that we're sort of habituating this is by playing these games, different
Yeah.
styles of games, where everyone has to sort of step up to the plate. And it's not really, I don't know if leadership is not the right word, but we're very much peers. Like everyone's doing
Yeah.
the same thing, and they're showing up in the way that they show up. And what time and time again we see is that people show up in very different ways. Like the small game or experiment that we did, everyone's little picture and text is a little bit different, but when you put them together, it feels like we are doing something. So we've just
Yeah.
had, I mean, we've only had a couple more experiments with them, but we're not recording calls with them, so this is like a different version of them.
Yep.
So the
We're
same
all
thing here.
novices.
We're all showing up to do this in
Yeah.
the way that we can. No one's leading this.
Yeah.
You just show up, do what you can, and then I don't know, we just basically are remarking on, oh, you see it that way, that's interesting, let me reflect on that, and then
Yeah.
on and on and on and on. Yeah.
We're learning each other's languages, and in doing this, you have a feeling for who is strongest and who is, you know, learning, and who is like, who needs support and who can offer support, and you can lean on each other this way, right? And then you're constantly surprised because people do all this stuff that they never talk about. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that you were good at that. In the future, I'll keep that in mind, right? So that the depth of our collaboration increases with every interaction. And the style of game that we're sort of designing allows for everybody to come in, like the better games allows for us to come in as novices. Like we're all at the same level in this game, right? Like, you know, there's a level of vulnerability that can be expressed in, you know, sharing somebody, you know, your mind in one of these games. And then what you learn from this is like, oh, I have a unique voice in this collaboration. And you'll see this stuff pop up. You're like, holy crap, I can hear you now. Like, because we've created a context in which that is possible. And when you can hear each other, you can hear where the stresses are. And part of it is like talking about our vulnerabilities and our fears and these kinds of things. And like having a space open to do this. It is therapeutic in that sense, you know? And it gives you a foundation to do large things because you know it's not going to crumble the second that, because we've already talked about our worst fears. I'm like, oh, that's your thing. I can hold that for you for now while we work on this thing, you know? Anyhow.
This is so new to me. In a way that the only reason that I'm asking these things is that I'm just trying to figure out just the structure of it. For me is what's very interesting, because I've kind of always admired people who pulled it off. I just never been able to see how that works, because from outside doesn't make sense to me. From inside. And then the other thing is that you kind of pick up things that is kind of, I don't know, it comes from the first few calls that you have with the client, like, all right, this is this, and when they say this, they actually mean this. Which kind of holds you back in most things, because you become a kind of people reader, if anybody can say that. Which makes collaboration very, very difficult in a way that you understand when they say something completely like partnerships. I'm saying like, now we're 50-50 in this thing, and then I need to actually see what you want to get out of it. Just skipping all of the vision stuff. What is it? Why are we doing this? Because it's not to build this thing. Anyway, that's where I am, because I need that in my life. So I'm like, I keep thinking about, all right, I need something that I cannot, that I shouldn't control. Then I want to see what the outcome of that, similar to, I want to raise money to see how that goes.
I mean, the taking care of people thing. So you found a way to do that professionally, and then you honed a skill where you can read people to be able to deliver what they want, what they really need. And then you're putting yourself in a position where you're, I mean, we've talked a lot about this today, where you're constantly like, like you're over indexed on that. You're too strong in that area. And then, I mean, you're identifying though that you want to do it differently. So that's, I mean, this is the first step, just being like, okay, I've been doing this. How do I stop doing it?
Takes years.
It helps. And it helps to be with other people and talking about it and it being okay. Like, it's like, if we don't talk about things, I mean, in my experience, it becomes this big thing in my head. Like, where I'm just like, oh my God, I can never do anything differently and blah, blah, blah. Like, I've got a whole narrative. Or it seems like it's going to take forever and I don't want to go through the whole thing and I'm scared of it, or whatever it is, but it's more fun when you're with people. So the thing between you two, like on this like spectrum, it's really interesting. So Farzad, it sounds like you don't trust the vision side of you, like the visionary side of you, unless you can architect it, right? How do I build the way to do that? And Dave is on the other side where he's like, I'm fully in on the visionary piece, but I don't know how to architect it. So his greatest fear is like, how do you architect the thing? Your greatest fear is like, how do I know that the vision is right? So the two of you together it's interesting. It's like totally different ends of the spectrum. It's cool.
I have those type of things, but it's in the background until I find the elements. It's never a focus. So it's the back of my head. I'm a one day I'll figure this out. And then I go about my life, 3 jobs projects coming in. I'm like, oh, there is something in there that I can use for this thing.
Yep.
And once I have the elements, then I actually take it seriously.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's this thing in the back of my head that one day I'll figure out how to do this.
In some ways that's true, right? We're all kind of doing that, where we're like piecing together this bigger thing and we don't know what it is until it hits us in the face. I think potentially it's easier to see what that thing is when you do it with people, and then you start to see that it's not just your thing, it's our thing, because you find people who share some aspect of it, because it is bigger than you. Like it can't reveal itself to you on your own. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about my life. Like you can grow so far and like high alone, and then you're like, well, what am I doing? It's like being on top of a mountain and you're just like, well, I'm alone up here, so now what?
Yep.
You know how something happens to you and what you take out of it is negative, and then it affects you for the rest of your life until you're like, no, that's not always the case.
Sure.
I talked to you one from Buchanan Beck. I'm like, man, I admire what you guys did with Buchanan Beck, with the structure, with how partners are developed and offices are built. And then we talked, and he goes, same for you, because I could never imagine myself doing it alone. I'm like, I wish I had in the beginning, but I realized it's very difficult, because then you don't have this baby that kind of pays for your food and for your all your dreams and everything. And then if that person is just, nope, not now, I'm not feeling it, and now I need to, what should I do? I have no, because it's a 50-50 thing. If we choose a direction, we both need to say yes to this. So I'm never gonna put my life in a place where, and because my livelihood depended on it, because I thought this is the right direction for it. But when I say we need to all be in a better financial place or in the same financial place, is that we're not dependent on this thing. It's just a project. But another thing is the agency again, fucking agencies. I wonder what would happen if I just, my starting point would be a startup, and then all fun, all you just experiment, you wear the t-shirts or whatever startups are doing. And we on the other end of it, startups that we are like, we need to deliver something that actually does something to them. We get them to turn their product to something that another company could acquire them, or we get them to a place where what they have, that people take them seriously. That's where we are. So for us, it's not a fun journey. For us, we need to deliver on the big promises that we made in the beginning of the project and the big monies that we're taking for a short amount of time. So same thing is with the agency for this, is that every single client that we had, the more number of co-founders was a red flag.
Sure.
For the agency side of things, because now, like, they are talking to every single one of them. We never, ever, unless there were 2 co-founders and there was some kind of outside of the work, there is a great relationship. Then they were very aligned, and we are talking about the thing, and they're both saying the same thing. But then as soon as the co-founders were more than 2, then we need to manage them, babysit them. All right, what you say is not what he wants, and then we need to deliver something that both of you guys like. And then now we are in the seat of just babysitting them. It's a nightmare for the agency. I've never been in it. I wonder how it feels to be in it, because they are in it and like, we don't see it. I'm saying the same thing. I'm not hearing the same thing. You're saying something else, and this guy says something else, and then it's 2 completely different products now, and we need to design your future. But then they go internally, they go, we were saying the same thing. Why this guy is not getting it?
I mean, this is where like complementary process can make up for a lot of this. Like, why are you here? Like, so with Carbon Made, Jason and I were there to continue to play the game. That's it.
And
Like,
learn
money
and
was part of
grow,
it.
right? Like that
Yeah,
was the
like
game, right?
we loved playing in the space. Like, look at all this stuff you can do. Look at what is possible. Look at how you can help people, right? And like, we are also really competitive because we're young men, right? And so we were pushing each other, and like, it's like working out with somebody. Like, okay, what do you got today? Oh fuck, Jason's pushing on that front. I better go out here and see. But I'm taking what he is teaching me, and then I'm teaching him like about language, and he's teaching me about how architecture works in code, and I'm teaching him about like design and marketing. And then like, we don't know any of this stuff, right? And we're pushing each other out into territory. And then that relationship, I lost track of that. I made it start to, like, the later years in Carbon Made, I, started growing into a leader and a style. I didn't have any mentors. It's a mess, right? I started going solo with this, and he started going solo with his thing, and we started pulling apart because we lost the core of what made our partnership work. We were basically responding to the environment based on skills that we were developing through agency work, right? And so we were sensing out into the world and what was necessary to build.
Yeah.
And then we would build it, and then for fun I put marketing on it to see if I could do it. And then people responded to it, and I'm like, okay, what are they responding to? And then I would build a little more of that, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I'm studying it, right? But it had to be fun. It had to meet the criteria that it is explaining clearly, and it is emboldening people to do things, right? There's an ethos in that. And so from that you get a natural cycle. And Jason, it was feeding both of our abilities, but it grew. We sat down and to try to manufacture that again, never got it working. Just
Got
couldn't
it.
do it. But when we would grow them, they would flourish. Like, this one is in line, let's start adding resource to it, let's add fuel to it. And then it would just, and then we never did that. We were just in the right place with the right skills, listening. You just listen.
Yeah.
And I forgot how to listen, and then it all fell apart.
There is a disconnect here. So there is this Carbon Made story where I understand, I relate.
Yeah.
Then there is this thing that a drastic change in how you kind of approach projects. So whatever it is, it has to do with Ponder, because that's the middle ground. You learn something there and you go, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to take this approach. What was that?
So what we learned in Ponder was, we set about manufacturing it again, right? Like, we have all these skills. I know how to do this. I know how to build a SaaS company. I know how to raise money. I know how to blah, 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 blah. Kristen knows how to organize a thing. Gustavo knew how to engineer things, right? He had been doing it at scale. And we took all of our skills, and then we were just like, make one. But at the same time, like, what we're actually doing is I'm researching philosophy and style of building. This was my actual work. The work we were doing every day, that we were like pushing ourselves into a schedule on, like to produce assets and artifacts to see the damn thing, like, that was terrible. It was awful. It didn't produce good results.
I think we were trying to unlearn the bad behaviors that we had taken on and how to work together. But in the process of it, we somehow recreated the environment in our own making, which made it even more horrible, because we were like, how did we just recreated a space where we could do it again? But we recognized that we did it. And that lesson was so salient. Like, okay, you can't do it this way, because if you do it this way, if you approach it this way, and I mean, this was the object oriented, like outcome oriented. And we were talking about doing it differently. We were talking a lot about, we want to work in a different way. We want to work sustainably, is one of the ways that we sort of were able to vocalize it, taking care of ourselves. And then we stopped taking care of ourselves. And when that happened, and we couldn't find our way out of it. So back to scarcity and money, we weren't, and it was not an even playing field for the three founders. Gustavo needed money to live, so he needed a job, but we didn't have that kind of setup. So we were trying to force into a business to make the money because we wanted to keep playing the game. And then the stressors that get associated with that, like scarcity and like your worst fears are coming to light, it became unworkable. So there's lots of lessons in there, but like the outcome focused, and talking about wanting to do it differently is a lot different than doing it differently.
Yep.
And then to your point, Farzad, like you have to find people who are at the same place. And for something that is going to be fundamentally different in how it is operationalized, you can't have it be your bread and butter because
No.
there's too much pressure on the thing. You
Yeah.
need to let it evolve and grow how it's going to. Which is not to say that you can't make money like on the thing, but forcing it into making money as like the goal,
Yeah.
that's not why you're doing it. I mean, that should be an outcome of it, an outcome. It's not the
Because it
focus,
needs to be
though.
sustainable. It needs to sustain itself. But the point is not for profit. The other
So
part of this that, go ahead.
just the other thing is the group stuff. Like there's a group
Yeah.
dynamic. Like everyone has to be doing it together. And because we felt into this, because we weren't all in the same place, we couldn't vibe, the three of us. We couldn't like hit a stride of collaboration. Yeah, and it just doesn't work. So you need the right team that is like flowing, basically. Like there's communication flow, there's information flow, the way that you're working is fluid, and you're on the same page, whatever that looks like. And every team is going to be different, every project is different. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, it's also tooling. Like if you're using tools to make all of your stuff, and tooling, I see up and down the stack. It's your interpersonal communication. It is your sets of practices, like how you are being as an individual. Like, are you working towards removing self-deception? Are you working towards keeping your body healthy? Are you like maintaining good relationship with
Yeah.
computers and drugs
Yep.
and alcohol and all
of
of
that.
these
Yep.
things? Like, because if you're not doing that stuff, then it will come out in the relationship and in the product. And so as you are, as everything else is, right? So like you are a representation of that. And if you are in an environment where that is difficult, like to maintain alignment and centeredness, and you are using tools that aren't oriented towards that, like say you're using like a mentality that is a work-based mentality for rapid growth, that directly flies in the face of like sustained, like intelligent,
Yeah.
healthful work. So,
short-term
and then,
gains over long-term win.
yeah, so
Again.
your
Yep.
financial tools, the way you raise money, the way you build things, all of this tooling, we were using inappropriate tools for what we were trying to envision, right? And so because you will operate through your tooling, it's an environment. You are only capable of using the tool in the way that it is designed, right? You can move out, but there are natural constraints there. And so finding a tool set and an ecology of practices again, like, and having that be true of the other people that you're working with, lets you invent tools to build the thing that doesn't exist yet. And that's what I'm mostly concerned with. So the lesson there was you can take stuff off the shelf, but you need to have an underlying ethos, how you know what you're doing with it. Like you are more centered in your approach. And with Ponder, we weren't. I was still coming from like, I need to make another one. I need to prove that I can do that again. Like, and it just I proved that if I try to do it the same way again, it'll end in a catastrophe. It doesn't work. You have to learn something new, and that you have to go back to being a novice. You have to go back to not knowing anything, which was it was humiliating in a humbling sense, in a wisdom sense, like, zero it all out, like start fresh, and then pick the stuff that worked from before. But yeah, anyway.
I think in the process too, what happened was we recreated the leadership thing where we were in more control because we were trying to work with a bigger team, but because we kind of reinvented this sort of, we're starting a business, we're the ones like controlling it. Yeah, I mean, the business and money thing took a priority over everything else. And that was our biggest downfall, like in any way that you could look at. what we did through that lens, it was like, well, shit, we did that again. We did that. Like, yeah, the money and business thing, because we needed to sustain that for our team to stay together.
The money is in service of the game, not the other way around. The money isn't the game. Like the money is allowed into the game when it is appropriate for sustainability, but not before. And you have to be talking about the money. You need to have like a shared understanding of what is the right relationship to the game and money, right? Like how is it fueling the thing appropriately? What does that look like in the partnership? How is it, how is controlled metered out to, anyways, all this stuff. So yeah, we learned a ton on that front.
Yeah, we learned we could work together.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And that, when someone's freaking out, the other person can like hold the space for them and like support them, kind of thing. We found ways to freak out together, and then we create feedback loops. And then when we figured that out, like we were like, we need to stop this, because we would just get into like these conversations where we're not doing anything, and it's just like reverberating like anxiety, basically.
Trusting that we can pull out of that, settle it down, and then talk about what just happened. Like,
yeah, over and over and over again.
That's really big, because what I've noticed is that from everybody that I know, because it takes let me think. It's about how you communicate during those, weird moments.
Yeah.
Because it can kill relationship. I think one of my biggest mistakes in the past been I involve people. That's a wrong word. Because I don't know, I don't like the term workaholic, but I work a lot just because it's just very fun for me.
Yep.
And then with relationships, I go, all right, what a great opportunity. We can actually do something together. And that's always when things could start go south, because I've always built teams. I've only at the beginning I had partners. So my language is not the right language.
Yep.
It's really, really difficult to get over it, because you just I have now, we are growing really fast. So soon we will be probably 15. And in Thailand, that number will probably go a lot, faster, just because it's so cheaper here to hire.
Yeah.
So I'm using the same language with everybody, where I'm kind of, that's what they look at me for sometimes. So like, what do we do? I'm like, what do you think we should do? I kind of ask them the same thing. But then I'm still the one that sometimes need to go, all right, here's what we need to do. Partnerships cannot have that. So that imagine you have 40 people in your life, and I'm a person that usually don't spend too much time with friends unless there is a party, or if there's not much to talk about, or we're doing something like gym or whatever. But otherwise, I'm just talking to people that I work with. Then I have the relationship. So I'm using the same, because it's just so automatically you start using the same language with that person as well.
Yep. You start managing your relationships.
Yeah. I'm like, fuck, this is yet another job. And I had that in the past. So I used to be married for 8 years, and I'm like, what a great opportunity. Let's work together. Things gonna be so much easier. We can grow much faster. We understand each other. Blah, blah, blah. And then that happened, and I'm like, all right, this was the biggest mistake from my side, because I could have, now I realize, like, there are some things like, all right, now we have a housemate. Now I have an assistant. I'm hiring for one now again. She has one. And now we're thinking about hiring somebody to cook food. Now anything that, we just left alone to just talk to each other, and then just live together, enjoy life together, go on adventures together. But then as soon as we start working together, God save us, we're gonna start a marketing agency together. But that's when the language needs to shift, because I need to go, all right, I don't know. And it's okay for me to not know.
Mm-hmm.
You figure it out. And
Yep.
I'm not saying it as you do it. I'm saying it as, you can figure it out. I might repeat the same mistake that I did in the past, or I might this time learn how to talk. I don't talk good usually when it comes to,
Does she
I've
know
noticed
this?
it because I was like with William too. Jesus,
Yeah.
like it is like that with every single person, because there is no difference in my mind between the people that I work with and the people that I don't work with, like family and relationship and friends.
Yep.
I'm the same way. I talk like this because
Yep.
majority of my time I spend working and talking to people that I work with. So I have this language now. Yeah, people notice. Anybody that I talk to, I take over
Yep.
very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of this too. Go ahead.
I admire people that can tell me shut up.
I was just gonna say, you probably need to give permission to people over and over and over again. Because Dave does this to me a lot. Just tell me to shut up. Literally that. Like sometimes I'm not comfortable with it, depending on what the environment is. But yeah, there's something there with like, so telling people I'm probably going to use this kind of language. When I do that, call me on it, because I'm not savvy enough yet. Like I'm not catching it, but I want to catch it. So can you help me? And most people are going to be like, cool, I'll help you. And then, yeah, there's another thing, like I was just picking up on, what I tend to do, and like I can learn from people like you two, is being more certain in what I'm proposing, but I tend to be more amorphous in how I present things, where it could be like this, maybe we should do it like that, instead of this is how it should be. So it's learning. So that's just the difference in language. You're saying the same thing, it's just how you say it. Because in my mind, I think this is how it should be done, but I'm always thinking, I don't know that, because there's other things going on here. And if I'm not certain, I can't be certain. And if other people tell me that's a good idea, then I know, because then I get the feeling like you're talking about, Farzad, where you're like, this is it. But only until I get that feedback from people, not initially. Initially, it's just an idea, and I want to share it. So, you get excited sometimes. Oh, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Only until people are like, yeah, that's a good idea. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
If you say this is a good idea and you come out presenting it as such, then you are taking the risks.
Yep.
You're not maybe like in my case, whenever I say things like low key, this might be a good idea, that means I'm not going to take any responsibility for this. Up to you.
You don't need to.
I'm not taking risks. But once you go confidently present something, you put yourself out there. And if you feel comfortable, and after the first time you've done it, you get positive feedback, it's so exciting to do it over and over again, because people tend to listen.
Pull that into the group mindset. Instead of getting the risk and like the sort of high from it, when you present the idea, take that out of the picture. It's not a good idea. It's nothing until the group decides it's a good idea and the group enacts it. And when the group puts it out, if a bigger, like the world tells you it's a good idea, that's the hit that you get on that is so much higher too.
Oh, it's bonkers. When you are in alignment with a group of people that you trust, and you've tossed this thing out in vulnerability, and they pick it up and start running with it, it's nuts. There's nothing like this.
And it might have been your idea to start with, and you might remember that, and other people might remember that, but it's not what's important. It's bigger, it's the group enactment of it. And then, I mean, it feels kind of crazy, because you're like, how is this possible? We're all doing the thing.
Yep.
But then if you come from, again, fucking agencies, you learn how to convince people. We get paid for this.
Yeah.
So you go back and question yourself. So you
gotta
go,
unlearn it. It sucks.
Yeah. Because I have this dilemma everywhere in life, because I think I can change people's mind about most things. And as an experiment, I pick the most things that they identify themselves as this is me. I'm like, this is not you. Just to see how far I can take it.
You're a
And I do
magician.
it in all dates.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So whenever somebody goes, this is me, I'm like, no, it's not. And I can convince that person that that is not them. And they go, yeah, you're right. And then they go thinking about it, and they come back after a few weeks, months. I'm like, oh my God, they changed. Just from a, and then you go, all right, I cannot trust other people when I say things. And when I say things and somebody goes against me, it's so fun for me. Because then I go, if they come back with reasonable arguments, I need to keep them forever. Because now I have finally have somebody who can hit me. Because I feel like that's the case.
You're learning to wield your power in a different way.
Yep.
Because you can control people. It's like mind control. It's not necessarily bad, but if you do that, yes, but not like.
Where is it coming from?
You're not a monster, though.
Yes.
Like, it's not. You know what I mean? So, but if you do that to people, you're immediately creating this like playing field where you are in control.
Yes.
And you're probably able to, if people are coming to an agency, they're looking for someone to tell them what they want. And you're like, I can do that for you. And you can. So then they come back because it feels good to like, you're like, oh, I'm the kind of person that is looking there, it's being fulfilled. But what you are saying in so many different ways is, I don't want to keep doing that. So you need to repurpose, because that ability and the energy that you are able to use to like implement that kind of experience, implement's not the right word, you have to put it to work somewhere else, because otherwise what the fuck do you do with that? Like you probably feel like a monster because you're just like, I got all this shit and I got to tell people what to do. No,
I do feel exactly that.
You're gonna learn a different way. That's what's happening.
You put your finger on this. It is to some degree once you know. And
simple, but not easy, maybe.
Exactly. It's going to take work, but it is a problem of language. The language structure, the grammar that you have to interact with other people, to relate to other people, is asymmetric. It is asymmetric towards a control structure. Yeah. So I had to go study alternate ways of relating to pick up the grammar. And then this is also like being around Kristen, who speaks this other collaborative, softer, soft but strong, right? Like centered in a different way, like learning the language from her. And this thing where I'm like, I'm gonna mindlessly start barking at you about this and that or whatever. Tell me. And the experience when she would tell me, I'm like, I'm not there.
Yeah.
She'd pull me back and I'd get all frustrated because I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say because I'm using this alternate language.
Well, you almost would have to black out.
Completely gone.
Like he's not and there. It's like not Dave. And I'm like, what are you doing right now? Like, and then, so we had this experience actually. My friend was here in front of her. We did this. And I'm trying to feel into what he's doing. Like you have to give people room, right?
Yeah.
And sort of let them push on it a little bit. But then you push back just a little bit to see like what he does. So I think you're blacking out less, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, you're aware of that you're doing it, but.
Well, and I'm learning more how to deal. So like if someone like, and I know you really well, if you're getting into the territory, because I can feel like there's a feeling of when, because I'm like, what I'm not understanding what you're doing right now. And it gets a little forceful and pushing. And I'm like getting comfortable with sitting with that, but I don't know how to orient to it. So I just question it. I don't know how to orient to this. What do you mean by that? And then if he gets more agitated, I'm like, okay, so something's going on here, but give him the room to feel it out without letting you go too far. Like keep grounding you. It's interesting. It's a really weird, look at your face is like, holy shit. I mean, Jesse said, she goes,
you haven't seen
do this all the time. And we're like, Kind of, yeah. It's not usually like this combative. It can be combative, but
So can you come back from that powerful place
yes.
and then like, so what I start doing is I start talking to them. I'm like, I'm using this language right now. I don't have grammar to explain what I'm feeling in a way that the other person can hear it.
Sure.
Right. And so she gives me the room, and then I'll start, because I'm way out ahead on something sometimes. I'm like, this is how this works, and this is how this goes, and
Yep.
this is like, here, like, fucking, why can't you see this?
Well,
Like,
sometimes, and this is where I'll just be like, I'm not there. I can't, like, this doesn't make sense to me in the way you're presenting it. I think we need to put it down now, or let's talk about this aspect of it. But, or I can't see it that way right now. I have a block on it. So just stop pushing, because it's too, like, for me, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to give ground. I can't, like, something in me won't let me engage in the conversation. So not now, maybe later.
so the ability to put it down and zero out is something that I've been training. It feels so good when you can do it, because like, I'm pushing, I'm certain, I know, and there's some level, like, is right, whatever that is, right? And I'm like, I must get this across. And
Yeah. And sometimes I'm
it's
just like,
just not
nah,
the right time,
yeah,
because the
no.
other person doesn't have the requisite understanding to understand the complexity of the thing that I'm working with. And so in that moment, I'm like, okay, what I've started to realize is we might be like a month away from this. So just slowly work with it. And then in this moment, set it down, go somewhere else, talk about something else, come back into your body, like look around. I'm here now. That this idea, this fantasy, this large structure visually that I've created, it's there. It'll be back. It's fine. I've been writing it down. Like, we're just not there yet. And then when she gets there, though, and then
just
we can
go.
take the time to find it, holy fuck, we can move so fast. Like, because we're speaking the same language. And then I'm picking up new ways of expressing certain aspects of what we're trying to do through a non-control and command structure. Instead, it's a backing off, a relating, a sensing, a listening, right? And then you can make the right move at the right time. Yeah, it opens up an enormous amount of what is possible. So, yeah.
I feel like it's one of those, like, why would you, I'm thinking, like, what's the motivation of just keep doing it? Because what you at core, what you're doing is you're trying to test people to find their limits. And
Yeah.
then once you found their limits, they're like, let me nudge them over, see what happens. Once you nudge people over their limit, then you go, all right, now I can mold them. And
that can be cruel, though.
Well, that's the monster part. Wait,
Yeah.
but then you start molding them, and then you go, fuck now. Like, it goes, time passes by, and then you go, I'm responsible for everything that is wrong right now, because I've created this, all of this.
Yeah.
Kind of. Because you go,
it does weigh more heavily. Yeah.
Yes, you are aware of the power that you hold in the ability to sense into people's strengths and weaknesses and help them along, right? Like, in seeing that stuff and pushing them, and some people are there for this. This is coaching, this is leadership, this is like collaboration in a style. But for some people, they like, giving them the room to get there themselves makes them a lot stronger.
There's always that component of it. And there's the question of, what are you doing this for? Is it in service of, like,
that's the other part of
like,
it.
sometimes, Dave, I need to understand this. I'm like, I understand that you need to understand it, but right now it's not working for me. So stop hammering it, because it's stressing me out. And I'm like, because he gets really far out, and I'm just like, I don't understand what you're saying. And then it makes me feel stupid. So, like, I'm like, can we stop? Because it's like, really, like, it doesn't feel good anymore, and I can't follow you, and then you're frustrated, and then I feel dumb, and what, like, this isn't fun. So it's like the sweet spot. So back to weight training, If you lift too heavy of weights, you're going to blow out your muscles. If you lift too light of weights, you're not going to be building strength. So it's finding a sweet spot. And in this bigger picture too of like the ecology of relationship, there's the interdependence that we are working together, but autonomy. So you have to have a balance there, that people have the room to work on their own in relationship to each other. So, and like, yeah, where you define those boundaries of like what is yours and what is ours, like that's malleable, that is open. We're sharing something, right? It's not that like you are you and I am me and this person is that person. When you come into a collective space, you are sharing something. So you decide where the boundaries are. And I think over time they change. And you can work up to places like, I don't know, there's group think like experiments that go awry where you've got people like literally programming other people.
Yeah.
And then other things where it's teams coming together and working together because there's a balance between interdependence and autonomy. Like people could do their own thing in relationship to the larger group.
Individually strong together.
Yeah.
What a beautiful word that would be. But
we got to make
it. Yeah. I mean, we are doing it right now.
Yes.
We are doing it right now.
Yeah.
It's this.
But each of us has our own experience, but we are sharing it with each other. And like that whole cycle pushes us. And like, you know, the whole act of doing this is vulnerable too. And then posting it to the web, like all like other people are looking at this. We've got, what do we have, 3 subscribers on our YouTube channel? I think it's John and CJ. I don't know who else, but
I don't know who else either.
People are looking at it. So we're pushing ourselves.
The numbers are interesting because we're building sincere, which is, you know, what I'm using to write and then send out. And then we're trying to merge blog with community, with newsletter to just see what comes out of it.
Yep.
I'm like, what are we tracking? Are we tracking open rate, send rate, all of these things? And then subscriber following this. So do we add number? We don't add the number. These are so interesting because now you're on the other end, you're building and you can make the right choices. But then back to the other thing, why are we doing this? And then that aside, you know, pin that, but I have this same type of conversation with only 3 people in my whole life. That's it. That's how limited that is.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy rate out of everybody that I talk to. So if you think a little bit more about it, with everybody else that I talk to, I'm in control. Like today's gonna be a good day talking about this. Or I can just make this to help because I just don't agree, and I can change everybody's mind to do basically that, or to just go, they give up and then they still do it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not a very healthy thing to live when you have only 3 people that you go, they can go, don't do it. I'm like, okay. But then most people don't go that far. They go, you can explain yourself, because I mean, that's probably why we get 3 jobs getting paid for that much money that it gets, because we can jump on a call and then they tell us, and then we tell the founder, you don't know, let us take care of it.
Yeah.
And they trust me enough to go, here it is. And here's what you asked for. Let's see if you can do it. And I actually do it. And I come back, hey, I did it. So I get a constant kind of a feedback that I'm right.
Yeah.
So I'm probably right about most things.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, let me figure out how much
it's overfitting. Yeah.
Well, you're creating all of this. You're creating all the stakes in the environment and all this stuff so that you are repeatedly right. So,
all right. So yeah. And then one more thing, I can put myself in this position, which I'm thinking about constantly, that I could fix my visa problems long time ago if I just didn't become this stubborn.
Yeah, probably.
Because they go, I don't know if you don't understand, but it was like, all right, get married, you can solve it. And I go, I don't feel like getting married right now. And that shouldn't be the solution. And I'm like, I got 2-3 opportunities like that. And everybody, you're so dumb. What are you messing your whole life with this? What's the point? I'm gonna make it a thing. It's gonna be how I'm gonna change this. And in my mind, and I'm like, 10 years from now, I'm just gonna go back and they're gonna admit that thing was wrong. damn, like, who the fuck do I think I am? Like, how
Yeah.
big do you think, what kind of a big self-image do you have? Then I wonder how the people that, um, get jailed for the wrong crime, or they never
Yeah. Yeah.
did it. What a
Yeah.
hard, and then they come out all peaceful. Damn, what, like, I'm trying to study them now to understand, all right, I need to
Yep.
make peace with it.
Yep.
So because I think my like origin of just trying to see, all right, can I change everybody's mind about pretty much everything,
Yeah.
comes from that. The
What I'm
place
hearing
where,
in that is this is the when you learn about your power, like, so think about it from a martial standpoint, right? Like from the military, right? There is a there is a strength in knowing how to make peace, like knowing when to go to war, right? And if you're at war
Sure.
inside, like there's the necessity for understanding graceful peace, like understanding how to forgive, how to let go, how to grieve for what you've done, what you might do, all of these things, right? With power. And it's particular, I think it's everybody needs to experience this, but the more resource and the more people that you've worked with and all this, the more that that is a complex issue, and the more that you have a chip that you're trying to work with, the like some scarcity, some lack, some like stubbornness. I have this same thing, like the power that you have in saying no to the easy way out, right,
Mm-hmm.
is understanding that you are working on something larger than this. but but it can go awry if you take it as you, right? It is
Yes.
yeah,
something that you're representing in the world, being able
Yes.
to hold the strength of that thing when you are encountering lots of things that can pull you from that path. And so part of it is looking back at these things that you've done and being able to hold them in strength and then let them go, right? Like to understand how the positive aspects and the negative aspects of these decisions that you've made balance you out into the person that you're going to become. And this requires space to do this. It's tough. It's
yeah.
part of growth. It's wisdom. This is where your wisdom comes from.
I feel like they should change the word let go,
Mm.
because just that, have you ever, like, this is the thing that I need to let go of,
Yeah.
you successfully have, or you just, it's there, I make my peace with it, it comes back sometimes, but that's the nature of it, because you can't, you are,
It's
it's
a
part of you now. How can,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
so letting go the attachment to the identity that was the
Okay.
person who reacts in that way. That's my definition of letting go. Like
Yeah.
removing, like letting that person like die in a way, letting them pass. That person that I was, that's the grief. Just you don't, I don't, like that younger person that reacted in this way, like you have to let go to grow. You have to let it, like this strength that you've built in being able to hold back forces and being able to manipulate reality is a strength and a weakness. And
Yeah.
so being able to let that person go and come back in a stronger form. So the letting go is just part of the process. Like it's not dropping it and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's releasing the hold so that it can come back. This is parenting, I think.
Parenting
um
yourself.
Yeah.
in the beginning, William and I talked a lot about, potentially working on something, or he really wanted to get in. And then he kept sending me these psychology personality tests. And he's like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's important if you're gonna work together. I'm like, what an interesting guy. I've never had that before. A guy sends me a personality test because if we work together, we need to be aligned. I'm like, wonderful. Uh, Damn, if I do it, it's not gonna be what you would expect. So we never actually did it. And but his approach was so interesting that I'm like, he approached things very human way, where
Mm.
I'm just, okay, this is work, what can you do?
Yeah.
um But then I kind of realizing why I'm doing Rising Enterprises and marketing agency with influencers, just to make home here. Kind of forcing myself, Thailand is now mine. I'm gonna put myself all over it this time, just because let me just make sure my stamp is all over it. Because that's kind of a reassurance thing as well, because you go,
Sure.
if in Sweden I did it enough because I was always outside of Sweden,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if I had enough signature there,
I'm
I
here.
wouldn't get deported. It's
Yep.
impossible because it was a wrongful one. So I go living a life, I go, I need influence and I need power. Then wrongful things cannot happen to me, but then I can make right for others. So they don't need to be a person of influence or have a certain financial state to, you know, not be fucked with, because that's day to day injustice happens to only those type of people. So I'm in Thailand, I'm gonna do Rising Enterprises, I'm marketing with influencers. I have the two perfect pieces of both side of the world in here, where I go, I did both. So I can have both of those groups of people know who I am.
Yep.
Then hopefully there won't be a third one, but third would be the charm. If it would be a third one, I actually thought about it. If there is going to be a third one, it's going to be South US this time. Seriously, I'm going to move there. I've had it for
Where?
a while.
Where did you say? Yeah, where?
South of America. So
Like what state?
Chile, or I would go Panama. I would go to those drug dealing probably places to figure out what life is there.
Colombia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably, most likely. If I've done Europe and I've done here, I can't do US. I can't do the other version of it, which is maybe Chile or something like that. Which I think I would feel pretty good about it.
I think we should end on this one, but like I have some piece of that, and the place that I've landed on that is figuring out the ability to create deeper relationship wherever I am.
Yeah.
Like to like be able to encounter other people wherever they're at whatever spectrum of wealth and place in the world. And I've got a long way to go on this. But if you can get into closer, deeper relationship, like at a peer level, at you know, whatever level is possible, then that's more like what home is. And you can do that anywhere if you have the language and if you have the ability. So this is how I've squared that. And some of those people will be very successful, and some of those people by the metrics of the world, and some of those people will be successful in ways that I can't see yet, living lives that I don't understand. And that's where there's there's interesting. And so the relational arts as such, like are how I'm squaring that. I think that's the highest leverage that you can have to use, you know, something. I don't know. Anyways, that's where I've landed on that one. I'm still working on it though. Anyway.
Design a community, this kind of experience gonna be interesting. What comes out of it?
We're just going to keep doing this and finding other people who are willing to do this, and that's the community design.
It designs itself. Yep.
Yep.
I mean, you start, what is it, like encoding or documenting what's happening, so that you can share it with others so they can reproduce it. But yeah, I think part of it's letting it emerge and people proposing ideas and.
Yep. This was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I'm gonna go lay down for 10 hours now.
Yeah, right. Yep. It's intense.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Till next time.
So next week I'm in Florida visiting my family.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we'll have to skip.
Okay.
Because I'm only there for a few days, and if I'm taking 3 hours, it's a lot.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, good. We'll have a bye week. We'll rest. Maybe we can do something asynchronous. We've been going nonstop.
We could do an async thing. That'd be maybe good. Maybe we pick another article and we do the group response thing.
Yeah, something that's I think that, yeah, I picked something that was too close to the vest. I think if there's something maybe like cultural or like spiritual, or I don't know, like something that we would like each other's perspectives on,
Yep.
like that might be surprising. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can sort of toss articles in Telegram, and if we agree on something to play with, then we do the process. But
Yeah, and the
What do we
idea
do? We
is,
just
yeah,
yeah.
so the idea is that
yeah,
whatever article we pick, not next week, but the week after, we would share in writing right before the call. So don't share it
mhm.
until the call. So you can't see what the other people write until we're together. Just a short, like, here's my reflection or reaction to whatever you read, 350 to 500 words. So it's not long. And
Yeah, in
then,
whatever format you want. Like I write mine like prose. I just blah 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 blah. Stream of consciousness. Like don't think about writing it well. It doesn't matter. It's just communicating whatever you've experienced in like looking at the material, and then we put it in a black box, and then we open the box together, and then discuss the thing. And what you get to see is this like, because we then think through the lens of this and look at the differences and similarities and all this other stuff. It's a fun process. So picking something that's like outside of our understanding is also interesting, because you can see how people work through their thinking. So yeah.
That would be fun, yeah. Outside
yeah,
of
Cool.
tech.
Yep.
yeah. So maybe we each try to think of an article that would be good, and then we'll see
Yep. And then we'll
whose
win
makes
it.
the most sense. Yeah.
Yeah, just choose one and then we'll go from there. Cool.
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 We did it.
We did.
Mission accomplished. Figured out everything.
All right.
Cool. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.